Officer Derek Crane's boot slammed into Dr. Maya Richardson's chest, sending her flying backward off the boat's edge. "Should have kept your goddamn mouth shut about our business," he screamed, his face twisted with rage as her handcuffed body plummeted 15 feet into the Atlantic. His partner, Michael Torres, fumbled with his phone, accidentally hitting record on the GoPro clipped to his vest. Below the surface, dark shadows circled bull sharks, 3 of them, their fins cutting through the morning light. Crane spat into the water where Maya had disappeared. Problem solved. He didn't know the camera was rolling. He didn't know she'd survive. And he sure as hell didn't know the world was about to explode. Before we dive into this story that shook the entire world, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay with us until the very end, because what Maya did next defied every odd, every expectation, and every attempt to bury the truth. And comment below with your city. Let's see how far this story of survival and justice travels across the globe. Maya Richardson stood before the Congressional Hearing Committee, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the microphone. The fluorescent lights felt like interrogation lamps, but she'd come too far to back down now. "Congressman Harrison, with all due respect, this isn't about dead fish anymore," Maya said, her voice cutting through the murmurs in the chamber. "This is about a systematic operation where Miami's Marine Unit provides armed escorts for illegal toxic waste dumps. I have GPS coordinates, shipping manifests, and photographic evidence of barrels marked with biohazard symbols being dropped 15 miles off the Florida coast." She clicked her remote. The screen behind her lit up with underwater footage, metallic drums leaking dark clouds into pristine coral reefs, fish floating belly up by the hundreds. Congressman Drake, a silver-haired man with thin lips, leaned forward. "Dr. Richardson, these are serious allegations against decorated officers. Do you have any actual proof of police involvement or just environmental concerns?" Maya's jaw tightened. She clicked again. This time, the screen showed a blurry photo of a police vessel hull number clearly visible positioned beside a commercial freighter at night. "That's Marine Unit Boat 7, Maya said. "Taken 4 months ago during what police logs claim was a routine harbor patrol. Except this photo was taken 14 miles offshore at 2 in the morning. And that freighter registered to Nexus Shipping Corporation, the same company that's paid over $3 million to various Miami-Dade police charities in the last 2 years." The chamber erupted. Reporters scrambled. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Representative Angela Morrison, one of the few black women in Congress, raised her hand for silence. "Dr. Richardson, are you saying there's a financial connection between—" "I'm saying they're being paid to look the other way," Maya interrupted, her voice rising. "I'm saying Officer Derek Crane, who commands that Marine unit, deposits $23,000 cash into his personal account every month. I'm saying Captain Susan Blackwell approved these patrols while her husband's construction company gets contracts from Nexus. And I'm saying 3 other environmental researchers who tried to investigate this before me are all dead or missing." The room went silent. "Dead or missing," Congressman Harrison repeated slowly. Maya nodded, swallowing hard. "Dr. James Chen, marine biologist, disappeared during a solo diving expedition 18 months ago. His research into toxic dumping sites was never recovered. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, oceanographer, died in a hit-and-run 3 weeks after filing a report with the EPA. And Marcus Webb, environmental journalist, drowned during what police called a tragic accident while fishing alone. All 3 were investigating the same dumping corridor I've mapped." She clicked again. 3 faces appeared on the screen, 2 black, 1 Asian, all smiling in their professional photos. All dead. "These weren't accidents," Maya said quietly. "And if I end up like them, I want this testimony on record. I want someone to know the truth." Representative Morrison's expression hardened. "Dr. Richardson, do you feel your life is in danger?" "Yes, ma'am. I've received 17 death threats in the last month. My apartment was broken into twice, nothing stolen, just my research files photographed. Someone slashed all 4 of my tires outside the university, and last week I was followed home by an unmarked car with police sirens in the dashboard. When I called 911, they told me no units were in my area." "Did you get the license plate?" Morrison asked. "I did. It's registered to Miami-Dade Police Department Marine Division." Another eruption of noise. Maya gripped the podium, feeling dizzy. Her sister India, sitting in the 3rd row, gave her an encouraging nod. "Keep going," her eyes said. "You've got this." But Maya's hands were shaking badly now, because sitting in the back row, partially hidden behind a column, was a man she recognized from that unmarked car. He wasn't in uniform, but she'd memorized his face during that terrifying 20-minute drive where he'd followed her through empty streets. He was staring at her now, his expression blank, his phone pointed directly at her, recording her. The hearing continued for another 90 minutes. Maya presented bank records, shipping logs, water quality reports, and testimony from coastal residents who'd witnessed the late-night dumping operations. By the time she finished, 3 congresspeople had called for federal investigations, and # Maya Speaks Truth was trending on social media. As she gathered her papers, India rushed over. "You were amazing, absolutely fearless." "I don't feel fearless," Maya whispered. "That guy in the back, he followed me last week." India's smile vanished. "Which guy?" But when they turned to look, he was gone. "Maya, maybe you should stay with me for a while," India said. "Just until..." "Until what? Until they arrest the people I just accused on national television. India, these aren't street criminals. These are cops with badges and guns and the entire system protecting them." "Which is exactly why you need protection." Maya shook her head. "The best protection I have is publicity. They can't disappear me now, not after that testimony went viral." She had no idea how wrong she was. 5 days later, Maya's morning run usually cleared her mind. The beach path near her apartment was quiet at 6 a.m., just her and the gulls and the endless rhythm of waves. She'd barely slept since the hearing jumping at every sound-checking door locks obsessively, but out here with salt air filling her lungs and her feet pounding sand, she could almost breathe normally. She didn't notice the police car following her until it was too late. "Dr. Richardson," a voice called. She turned, her heart already racing. 2 officers approached. One she recognized immediately. Derek Crane, the man who commanded the Marine unit. The man she'd named specifically in her testimony. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Morning, doctor," he said pleasantly. "Beautiful day for a run." Maya's mouth went dry. "Officer Crane? You know who I am. Good." His smile widened. "Saves introductions. This is Officer Torres, my partner." The second cop was younger Latino, with nervous eyes that kept darting to Crane and back to Maya. He nodded but didn't speak. "Can I help you with something?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Actually, we need your help with something," Crane said. "See, we got a report of drug activity in this area, cocaine distribution, and witnesses described someone matching your description." Maya's blood turned to ice. "That's ridiculous. I'm a marine biologist. I don't..." "Save it," Crane said, his pleasant tone vanishing. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "What? No, I haven't done anything. I'm not..." Crane moved faster than she could react, spinning her around and yanking her arms back. The handcuffs bit into her wrists with brutal force. "Officer Crane, this is illegal. You can't just..." "I can do whatever the fuck I want, doctor," he hissed into her ear, his breath hot against her neck. "You're under arrest for possession with intent to distribute. You have the right to remain silent, and I strongly suggest you use it." Torres shifted uncomfortably. "Crane, maybe we should..." "Should what Torres follow procedure, call it in." Crane laughed harshly. "She gets one phone call from the station like everyone else. Right now we're transporting a dangerous suspect. Get the car." Maya's brain screamed at her to run, to scream, to fight. But Crane's grip was iron, and his gun pressed against her spine made the threat crystal clear. "Please," she said, hating the tremor in her voice. "Whatever you're planning, people know where I am. My sister knows my running route. If I disappear..." "If you disappear, you're just another jogger who got grabbed by a stranger," Crane said. "Happens every day. Tragic. Maybe you fought back. Maybe you ran. Maybe you fell into the ocean trying to escape. Who knows? Point is, you should have thought about that before you went on TV talking about things that aren't your business." They shoved her into the back of the patrol car. But instead of heading toward the police station, they drove east toward the marina. Maya's stomach dropped. "Where are you taking me? The station is the other direction." Crane glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Did I say we were going to the station? We're taking you for a boat ride, doctor. Since you love the ocean so much, we figured you'd enjoy it." "Torres?" Maya said desperately, making eye contact with the younger officer. "Please, you don't have to do this. Whatever he's told you, whatever they're paying you, it's not worth becoming a murderer." Torres flinched like she'd slapped him. "Shut up," Crane snapped. "Torres, you listening to this criminal, she's trying to manipulate you. Classic narcissist behavior." "I'm not a criminal," Maya shouted. "You planted those drugs, didn't you? Or maybe there are no drugs at all. Maybe you're just going to throw me off a boat and call it resisting arrest." The silence that followed was worse than any confirmation. Torres's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Crane man, I don't know about this. What we talked about, using the boat to scare her into backing off her testimony, that's one thing. But this feels like..." "Like what?" Crane's voice went flat and dangerous. "You getting cold feet, Torres, because I can make one phone call and your mother's immigration status becomes a federal case. You want that." Torres went pale. No, no, sir. Then drive the fucking boat and keep your mouth shut. They reached the marina at 6:47 a.m. Maya knew the exact time because she kept checking the clock on the dashboard, desperate to track anything that might help if when she escaped the sis. She had to believe she'd escaped this. The marina was deserted. Crane dragged her onto a police vessel, Marine Unit Boat 7, the exact boat from her congressional photographs. Poetic, isn't it? Crane said, shoving her onto the deck. The same boat that's going to make all your research irrelevant. Can't testify if you're fish food. Torres started the engine, his face ashen. Maya noticed his hands shaking. Please, she said again, directing her words at Torres. You're young. You have your whole career ahead of you. This will destroy you. One decision, one moment, it'll haunt you forever. I said shut up, Crane backhanded her across the face. Pain exploded through Maya's skull. She tasted blood. Jesus, Crane, Torres shouted. That wasn't you said we were just going to dump her somewhere remote, make her walk back. You said... I said what I needed to say to get you here, Crane replied calmly, pulling out his weapon. Now you're an accomplice, so you either help me finish this or you join her in the water, your choice rookie. The boat cut through the morning water, heading farther and farther from shore. Maya's mind raced. She'd studied these waters her entire career. 15 miles out, maybe 20. Deep water, strong currents. And yes, sharks. Bull sharks especially aggressive and territorial. She thought about her sister, about her mother, who died fighting similar corruption 10 years ago. Breast cancer officially. But Maya had always wondered if the stress of her activism had accelerated it. Her mother had been an environmental lawyer taking on chemical companies and losing, always losing, until the fight consumed her. I'm sorry, Mama, Maya whispered. I tried. Crane heard her. Talking to ghosts already? Good. You'll be joining them soon. After 40 minutes, Crane cut the engine. They were in the middle of nowhere, just endless blue water and burning sun. This is far enough, he said. Torres, get the vest. Torres disappeared below deck and returned with a weighted diving vest, the kind used for deep-sea diving. 20 pounds of lead. Maya's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. You're really going to do this. You're really going to murder me. Murder's such an ugly word, Crane said, fastening the vest around her despite her struggles. I prefer problem-solving. You became a problem doctor. Problems need solutions. They'll know it was you, Maya shouted. My testimony, the hearing my research, it all points to you. The FBI will... The FBI doesn't give a shit about some dead activist, Crane interrupted. You think you're the first person to accuse us. There have been dozens, all discredited, all forgotten. You're nobody special. He grabbed her arm and dragged her toward the edge of the boat. Maya fought with everything she had, but the handcuffs and weighted vest made her helpless. Wait, Torres said suddenly. Crane, I think we should vote on this. Democratic decision? Crane stared at him. Vote? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm serious. We're both in this. We should both agree. For a moment, hope flickered in Maya's chest. Maybe Torres would fine, Crane said. All in favor of throwing this bitch to the sharks, say aye. Aye, Crane said. Silence from Torres. Torres? Crane prompted, his hand moving to his gun. Torres closed his eyes. Aye? Democracy in action, Crane said with a grin. Any last words, Doctor? Maya looked him straight in the eye. You think you're going to get away with this, but you won't. The truth always surfaces. Always. Poetic, Crane said. Torres, you getting this might as well document the moment. Torres's hand moved to the GoPro on his vest. He meant to turn it off. Maya could see it in his expression, but his shaking fingers hit the wrong button. The red recording light blinked on. Crane didn't notice. He was too focused on Maya, on his moment of triumph. Should have kept your goddamn mouth shut about our business, he screamed, and his boot slammed into her chest with devastating force. Maya flew backward, the world spinning. She caught a glimpse of Torres's horrified face, of Crane's twisted satisfaction of the endless blue sky. Then she hit the water. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. The weighted vest dragged her down immediately, the handcuffs making it impossible to swim. Salt water burned her ear, her nose, her throat. She kicked frantically, but the weight pulled her deeper, deeper into the cold darkness. 15 feet down, 20, 30. Her lungs screamed for air. Panic clawed at her mind. Then she saw them. 3 shadows circling. Bull sharks just as she'd feared. The largest was at least 8 feet long, its blunt snout unmistakable even in the murky water. They moved with patient curiosity, spiraling closer. Above her, distorted by water and distance, she could hear Crane's voice, problem solved. She was going to die here. Drown or be torn apart, those were her options. The weights made it impossible to surface. The cuffs made it impossible to swim, and the sharks made it impossible to wait. Through her terror, her scientist brain kicked in. Bull sharks were aggressive, yes, but they were also cautious with unfamiliar prey. They tested first, especially with larger animals. They'd bump retreat assess. She had maybe 2 minutes before they decided. She was food. The vest? She had to get the vest off. Maya twisted, ignoring the burning in her lungs, and managed to get her bound hands to the vest's emergency release buckle. It was designed for one-handed quick release, but with her hands behind her back and no air and sharks circling, her fingers found the buckle. Pulled. Nothing. The pressure of the water had jammed it. Black spots danced across her vision. She had seconds left. The largest shark moved closer, its dead black eye fixing on her. Maya did the only thing she could think of. She stopped fighting. Stopped moving entirely. Let her body go limp, sinking slowly in the water column. Playing dead. The shark bumped her leg gentle, almost curious. Testing. Its sandpaper skin scraped her calf, drawing blood. Blood in the water. Now she was really finished. But something miraculous happened. The shark didn't attack. It circled once more, then descended into deeper water. The others followed. Confused by her lack of response. Uninterested in dead meat. Maya's lungs were on fire. She had maybe 10 seconds of consciousness left. She twisted again desperately, and her fingers brushed something sharp on the vest itself, a metal D-ring where diving equipment would attach. Not sharp enough to cut through handcuffs, but she hooked her thumb through it and pulled with every ounce of strength she had left. The buckle groaned, shifted, and suddenly gave way. The vest fell off, tumbling into darkness. Maya kicked upward with her last reserves of energy, her vision tunneling her body, screaming. Up, brut! Through the blue void toward the light that seemed impossibly far, she broke the surface with a gasp that tore her throat raw. Air. Blessed, burning, beautiful air. She could hear the boat's engine already distant, already leaving. Crane's voice carried across the water. Let's get back. I need a shower after touching that trash. Torres said nothing. Maya treaded water, still handcuffed, watching the police vessel grow smaller. They didn't look back. Why would they? They'd just dumped a weighted body in shark-infested waters. No one survived that. No one except her. She floated there for a moment, catching her breath, feeling the salt water sting the cuts on her wrists and the bruise forming on her chest where Crane had kicked her. Then she started laughing. Hysterical, exhausted, terrified laughter that turned into sobs. I'm alive, she said to the empty ocean. You sons of bitches, I'm alive. But alive how long she was miles from shore. Still handcuffed. Surrounded by sharks that might return any moment. The sun was already brutal on her face. She had to move. Had to find something, anything. Maya forced herself to think like the scientist she was. Current direction, water temperature, debris patterns. She knew these waters. There was a shipping lane about 6 miles north. She could see contrails from aircraft overhead, which meant she was still within range of Miami International's flight path. 6 miles, handcuffed, with sharks. You can do this, she whispered. You survived Mom's death. You survived poverty. You survived every person who said a black girl from Liberty City couldn't become a PhD. You can survive this. She started swimming. The first hour was pure agony. Her shoulders screamed from the unnatural position of swimming with her hands cuffed behind her. Several times waves pushed her underwater, and she had to fight not to panic, not to inhale salt water. Then she found the debris field, floating among the endless blue pieces of what looked like a recent boat accident. A torn life vest, useless but still floating. A water-damaged emergency beacon, its light blinking weakly. A cooler bobbing on the surface like a gift from God. Maya grabbed the cooler, her handcuffed hands barely able to maintain grip. Inside melted ice and, yes, a waterproof phone case. Her heart leaped. She managed to hook her thumbs into the case and drag it open. The phone inside was dead, destroyed by water. But the emergency beacon function, the separate device that didn't rely on the phone itself, it was still transmitting. Weakly, barely, but transmitting. Please, Maya prayed to whoever might be listening. Please let someone pick up this signal. She tied the beacon to the cooler using a piece of torn strap from the life vest, her numb fingers working slowly. Then she draped herself across the cooler, conserving energy. The sun climbed higher. Her skin began to burn. Thirst became torture. Surrounded by water, she couldn't drink. Around hour 3, the sharks returned. She saw the fins cutting through the water closer this time. 2 bulls and what looked like a tiger shark, even larger. No, Haka, Maya said firmly as if talking to misbehaving dogs. No, you don't want me. I'm all bones and attitude. Go find a nice fat fish. The tiger shark circled closer, then closer. Maya's brain screamed at her to splash to scare it away, but she knew better. Splashing meant prey. Prey meant food. She stayed perfectly still even as the massive shark brushed against the cooler, even as its rough skin scraped her dangling leg. It circled once, twice, then inexplicably descended back into the depths. Maya exhaled shakily. Thank you, Mama. I know that was you. By hour 5, hallucinations began. She saw her mother standing on the water wearing her Sunday dress smiling. She saw India calling her name from a boat that wasn't there. She saw the congressional hearing room, except everyone was underwater, fish swimming between the senators. Stay awake, she told herself. Stay focused. Someone will find the beacon. Someone will... Thunder rumbled in the distance. Maya lifted her head. The sky to the west had turned dark green, the color of bad storms in the Atlantic. Lightning flickered inside the clouds. A hurricane, no, it was too early in the season, but a tropical storm maybe, or just a severe thunderstorm that would turn these already dangerous waters into a death trap. The first raindrops hit like bullets. Within minutes, the sea transformed. Waves that had been manageable grew to 6 feet, 8 feet, tossing her and the cooler like toys. Lightning struck close enough that she felt the electricity in the air. The cooler flipped. Maya went under, tumbling in the chaos, her handcuffed hands making it impossible to orient herself. Which way was up? The water was too turbulent to tell. Her hand brushed something solid. Instinct made her grab it. Coral. Sharp cutting into her palm, but solid. She'd been pushed into a coral formation, which meant shallower water, which meant she used the coral to pull herself up. Breaking the surface just as another wave crashed over her. She coughed, sputtered, fought to breathe. The emergency beacon. Where was it? There 10 feet away, its light still blinking beneath the surface as it sank. Maya didn't think. She dove. Her hand still cuffed, reached desperately. The beacon was caught on something, a piece of coral maybe. She pulled, twisted, and her wrist scraped against a sharp edge of the coral. Pain. Blood in the water again. But the metal of the handcuffs had also scraped the coral, and coral Maya knew was harder than most people realized. Calcium carbonate sharp enough to cut. She started sawing her cuffs against the coral edge, ignoring the pain, ignoring the blood, ignoring everything except the need to be free. The storm raged above. Waves hammered her down. Lightning turned the world white. The handcuffs bit deeper into her wrists, then crack. The chain between them snapped. Her hands were free. Maya grabbed the beacon and kicked toward the surface, her arms finally able to swim properly. She broke through into the storm, gasping, bleeding, but free. She clutched the beacon to her chest like a lifeline and started swimming again, this time with both arms, toward what she hoped was land. The storm lasted 3 hours. By the time it passed, night had fallen. Maya floated in darkness so complete she couldn't see her own hands. Exhaustion pulled at her like the weights Crane had strapped to her chest. It would be so easy to just let go, to sleep, to sink. No, she said aloud. Not like this. Not after everything. She started reciting her mother's favorite poem, Maya Angelou's Still I Rise. Her voice cracked and broken in the darkness. You may write me down in history, Shai, with your bitter twisted lies, Shre. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. Saying the words kept her awake, kept her swimming, kept her human. Then in the distance a light. Not lightning, not hallucination, a steady white light moving across the horizon. A ship. Maya screamed, waved her arms. The beacon's light was too weak, the ship too far. She watched helpless as the light began to move away. No, she screamed. Please, please. And then a sound that made her heart stop. The whir of a drone. She looked up. There, hovering 30 feet above the water, a small drone with a camera and a spotlight. It had found her beacon's signal. The spotlight swept across the water and locked onto her face, blinding her. Maya raised her bleeding hands, squinting into the light, and started to cry. Help, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Please help me. The drone speaker crackled to life. A woman's voice, heavily accented Spanish Maya thought said something she'd remember for the rest of her life. I see you, Hermana. Hold on, we're coming. 18 hours after being thrown to the sharks, Dr. Maya Richardson was pulled from the Atlantic Ocean by the crew of the commercial fishing vessel Santa Maria, captained by Rosa Martinez. The footage from the drone showing a handcuffed black woman treading water in the middle of the ocean, covered in blood and injuries, would be uploaded to social media 47 minutes later. Within 2 hours, Maya Lives would be trending worldwide. Within 4 hours, every major news network would be covering the story, and within 6 hours, someone would leak the GoPro footage from Officer Torres's vest camera. The video that showed everything. But Maya didn't know any of that yet. As Captain Martinez wrapped her in blankets and pressed water to her cracked lips as the crew stared at her in shock and horror, Maya said only one thing: call my sister, tell her I'm alive, tell her I'm going to finish what I started. And then finally she let herself sleep. Captain Rosa Martinez had seen a lot in 23 years of commercial fishing storms that swallowed boats, whole crews that mutinied over pay disputes, Coast Guard raids for violations she didn't commit. But she'd never seen anything like the woman her drone had found floating in the Atlantic at 1:47 a.m. Maya's wrists were raw meat, the skin torn down to white bone in places where the handcuffs had cut through. Her lips were cracked and bleeding from dehydration. Shark bites, small ones, exploratory, marked her calves and forearms. But her eyes, when they focused on Rosa, burned with something that made the captain take a step back. Rage. Pure, focused, unbreakable rage. Your name, Rosa said gently, kneeling beside Maya on the deck. Tell me your name so I can call someone. Maya's voice came out like gravel scraping concrete. Dr. Maya Richardson, my sister India Richardson. She's a lawyer in Miami. Her number is... She rattled off 10 digits without hesitation despite having been in the water for 18 hours. Rosa's deckhand, a young kid named Paolo, was already dialing. He put the phone on speaker. It rang 4 times. Then a woman's voice, thick with sleep and irritation. This better be an emergency because it's 2 in the goddamn morning. India Richardson, Rosa asked. Who's asking? My name is Rosa Martinez. I'm captain of the fishing vessel Santa Maria, currently 73 miles southeast of Miami. I have your sister. Silence. Then quietly, dangerously, my sister is missing. She disappeared yesterday morning during her run. Police say she's most likely... India's voice broke. They say she's most likely dead, so whoever the fuck you are making prank calls about... I'm not dead, Maya said loud enough to cut through. India, it's me. I'm alive. The sound India made wasn't quite a scream and wasn't quite a sob. Maya, oh my God, where have you been? What happened? The police said you ran, that there was a warrant that you... The police threw me off a boat, Maya said flatly. Derek Crane and Michael Torres. They handcuffed me, put weights on me, and threw me into the ocean to drown. They wanted me dead because of the testimony. Rosa watched India process this information in real time. The silence stretched for 5 seconds, 10-15. Then, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to fucking kill them both. Get in line, Maya said, and despite everything, she almost smiled. But first, I need you to do something for me. I need you to call every news station, every reporter, everyone. Tell them I'm alive. Tell them exactly what happened. Make it impossible for them to bury this. Maya, you need a hospital first. I need them to know they failed, Maya interrupted. I need the world to know what they did before they have time to cover it up. India, please. I didn't survive sharks and storms just to let them write the narrative. India was quiet for a moment. Then I'll make the calls. But Maya, you get to a hospital. Promise me. I promise. Rosa ended the call and looked at Maya with new respect. You're going to start a war. They started it when they tried to drown me, Maya replied. I'm just going to finish it. Rosa's crew had already contacted the Coast Guard, but Maya insisted on something else first. Do you have internet strong enough to live stream? Rosa frowned. We have satellite internet, yeah. Why? Because I want to tell my story before anyone else can spin it, right now, while I still look like this. Maya gestured to her torn clothes, her bleeding wrist, the bruises already darkening across her chest and face. Paulo the deckhand pulled out his phone. I can stream to Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of them at once. My cousin's a tech guy, set me up with an app. Do it? Maya said. You sure? Rosa asked. You look half dead, no offense. That's exactly the point, Maya said. Let them see what their heroes in blue did to me. 3 minutes later, Maya sat propped against the fishing boat's cabin wall. Paulo's phone camera pointed at her face. The livestream counter showed 47 viewers. Paulo's followers, mostly other fishermen and family. Then Maya started talking. My name is Dr. Maya Richardson. 5 days ago, I testified before Congress about police corruption and illegal toxic waste dumping. Yesterday morning, Miami police officers Derek Crane and Michael Torres arrested me on false charges, drove me to a boat instead of the station, and threw me into the Atlantic Ocean. I was handcuffed. I was weighted. And they left me to drown in waters they knew were full of sharks. The viewer count jumped to 300. I survived by cutting my handcuffs on coral. I survived by playing dead when bull sharks circled me. I survived through a tropical storm with no food, no water, nothing but the will to make sure these men face justice. 1,000 viewers. They thought they could silence me. They thought the ocean would erase their crime. But I'm still here. And I want everyone watching to know this isn't just about me. 3 other researchers investigating the same corruption are dead. How many more people have they killed? How many more bodies are at the bottom of the ocean? 5,000 viewers. Maya held up her wrists, showing the raw bleeding wounds where the handcuffs had cut through. This is what your tax dollars pay for. This is what happens when you give unchecked power to people who see justice as an obstacle instead of a mission. 10,000 viewers. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm demanding accountability. I'm demanding that every officer involved faces federal charges. I'm demanding that Captain Susan Blackwell, who authorized these patrols, explains why her unit has the highest rate of accidental deaths in the department. I'm demanding the FBI investigate every single case. The viewer count hit 50,000 and kept climbing. Someone in the comments wrote, "This is that scientist from the Congress hearing." Another, "Holy shit, she's alive. The news said she was dead." Another, "Someone saved this video before they delete it." Maya leaned closer to the camera. "To Derek Crane and Michael Torres, you failed. To everyone who helped cover up your crimes, I'm coming for you. And to everyone watching, don't let them bury this story. Share it. Save it. Make it impossible to ignore." The stream hit 200,000 viewers before Paulo's phone overheated and crashed. But it was enough. The video had already been screen recorded and reshared thousands of times. Within 30 minutes, hashtag Maya Lives was trending in 14 countries. By the time the Coast Guard helicopter arrived at 4:23 a.m., Maya's livestream had been viewed 1.3 million times. The Coast Guard medic, a woman named Sarah Chen, tried to get Maya onto a stretcher, but Maya refused. "I can walk. I need to walk off this boat on my own 2 feet. I need people to see that I survived." "Ma'am, you're severely dehydrated. You have multiple lacerations, possible hypothermia." "I know what I have," Maya said, standing on shaking legs. "I have a platform, and I'm going to use it." Shit. The helicopter ride to Jackson Memorial Hospital took 12 minutes. Maya spent 11 of them on Sarah Chen's phone, still streaming, still talking. The view count passed 3 million. India was waiting at the hospital, and the moment Maya's feet touched the helipad, her sister broke through the security cordon and wrapped her in a hug that made Maya's bruised ribs scream. She didn't care. "You're alive," India sobbed into her shoulder. "Oh God, you're really alive." "Barely," Maya admitted, her adrenaline finally starting to fade. "But yeah, I'm here." India pulled back, her lawyer mask sliding into place even as tears streamed down her face. "Okay, listen to me. Don't talk to any police. Not one word until I'm with you. They're going to try to twist this, say you're unreliable, that you were on drugs." "I was live streaming from the fishing boat," Maya interrupted. 3 million people heard me tell the story. They can't twist that." India's eyes widened. "You what?" "I told the world what they did to me. While I was still bleeding, still hypothermic, still looking like a goddamn survivor. They can't discredit me now." For the first time in Maya's memory, her sister looked genuinely shocked. Then she started laughing, a slightly hysterical sound. "You brilliant, reckless, insane woman. Do you know what you just did?" "Started a war," Maya said, echoing Rosa's words. "Just like I promised." The hospital wanted to admit Maya for at least 48 hours, but she refused. "Treat the wounds, give me IV fluids, and release me. I have work to do." Dr. Ahmed Hassan, the attending physician, looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Ms. Richardson, you have second-degree burns from sun exposure, severe dehydration, multiple lacerations requiring stitches, and early-stage hypothermia. You need rest." "What I need is to hold a press conference before the police department spins this into something it's not," Maya said. "How long until I can do that safely?" Dr. Hassan exchanged a look with India, who shrugged helplessly. "She's always been like this. Stubborn doesn't even begin to cover it." 4 hours, Dr. Hassan said finally. 4 hours of IV fluids, wound care, and rest. Then I'll clear you for limited activity, but I'm putting it on record that this is against my medical advice." "Noted," Maya said. "Now can someone get me a phone? I need to see what's happening out there." What was happening out there was chaos. Paulo's live stream had been reshared by celebrities, politicians, activists, journalists. The hashtag Justice for Maya had spawned alongside hashtag Maya Lives, and both were trending #1 worldwide. But that wasn't the explosive part. At 6:17 a.m., an anonymous account posted a 47-second video clip to Twitter with the caption, "They tried to delete this, don't let them." Maya watched the video on India's phone, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. GoPro footage. Crystal clear. Officer Michael Torres' body camera showing everything. Crane's boot slamming into her chest. Her body flying backward off the boat. The splash. Crane's voice, problem solved. The two officers leaning over the rail, laughing. One of them taking a selfie with the ocean where Maya had disappeared. Then worst of all, the underwater footage as the camera briefly dipped below the surface showing Maya's weighted body sinking, showing the dark shapes of sharks moving in. The video ended with Crane saying, "Guess she won't be filing any more complaints." Maya watched it 3 times. Then she looked at India. "Where did this come from, Tums?" Anonymous source, but Maya, the metadata shows it was uploaded from inside the Miami-Dade Police Department building. Someone on the inside leaked it. Maya's mind raced. Torres. It had to be Torres. The kid had looked sick the entire time, had tried to argue, had voted to kill her only under threat. Maybe his conscience had finally won. The video currently had 47 million views and counting. Outside the hospital room, Maya could hear shouting. Protesters had gathered, both supporters demanding justice and counter-protesters claiming the video was fake, that Maya was a professional activist staging a hoax. India checked her phone and swore. Miami PD just released a statement. Want to hear it? Do I have a choice? India read, "The Miami-Dade Police Department is aware of allegations made by Dr. Maya Richardson regarding officers Derek Crane and Michael Torres. We take all accusations seriously and are conducting a thorough internal investigation. However, we urge the public to remember that Dr. Richardson is currently wanted on outstanding warrants for drug possession and resisting arrest. We ask that everyone reserve judgment until all facts are known." Maya laughed a bitter sound. Outstanding warrants. For drugs they planted. Classic. "It gets worse," India said. "Captain Susan Blackwell held a separate press conference 20 minutes ago. She's claiming you attacked the officers first, that they were forced to restrain you, and that you jumped overboard in an attempt to escape lawful custody. Even with the video showing them throwing me, she's calling the video edited and misleadingly framed." Her exact words. Maya closed her eyes, feeling rage build in her chest like a physical thing. How stupid do they think people are? Stupid enough to believe them, apparently. Half the country's calling you a hero. The other half is calling you a criminal who got what she deserved. A knock on the door interrupted them. A hospital administrator poked his head in, looking nervous. "Dr. Richardson, there are approximately 200 reporters in our parking lot demanding a statement. Security is overwhelmed, and, the police are here. They say they need to question you about the incident." "Like hell," India snapped. "My client isn't speaking to anyone without legal counsel present, and right now I'm advising her to invoke her Fifth Amendment rights." "I'm not invoking anything," Maya said quietly. "I'm holding a press conference right now." "Maya, you're not ready." "I'm exactly ready, Husky," Maya interrupted. "India, they're trying to control the narrative while I'm weak and hidden away in a hospital room. Every minute I stay silent, they get stronger. I need to speak, now." India studied her sister's face, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but we do this smart. You make a statement, you don't take questions, and you let me handle the legal minefield. Agreed?" "Agreed." 30 minutes later, Maya stood in the hospital's press conference room with force still attached to her arm bandages, visible on her wrists and face. She'd refused makeup, refused to change out of the hospital gown. She wanted the world to see exactly what she looked like after 18 hours in the Atlantic Ocean. The room was packed with cameras, reporters, curious onlookers. Maya spotted several people in the back wearing police uniforms, watching her with hostile expressions. She stepped up to the microphone and the room fell silent. "My name is Dr. Maya Richardson." She began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. 5 days ago, I testified before Congress about corruption in the Miami-Dade Police Department. Yesterday morning, officers Derek Crane and Michael Torres arrested me on false charges. They did not take me to the police station. They took me to a boat. They handcuffed me. They put weights on me. And they threw me into the ocean to die. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. I survived because I know these waters. I survived because I study shark behavior for a living and knew how to avoid being eaten. I survived because I cut my handcuffs on coral, even though it meant cutting through my own skin. I survived through sheer luck and stubbornness. But 3 other researchers who investigated the same corruption I exposed, they didn't survive. Dr. James Chen, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, and Marcus Webb are dead, and I want to know if they drowned too. The room erupted with shouted questions. India stepped forward, holding up her hand for silence. Dr. Richardson will not be taking questions at this time, India said, but I will make a brief statement as her legal counsel. We are filing federal charges against Officers Crane and Torres for attempted murder violation of civil rights and conspiracy. We are filing charges against Captain Susan Blackwell for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. And we are demanding an immediate FBI investigation into every death or disappearance connected to the Marine unit over the past 5 years. A reporter shouted, "What about the drug charges against Dr. Richardson?" "Fabricated," India said flatly. "No drugs were ever found. No evidence exists. It was a pretext for kidnapping, nothing more." Another reporter, "Captain Blackwell says Dr. Richardson jumped overboard voluntarily." "Then Captain Blackwell is a liar," Maya said, leaning back toward the microphone. "And I have video evidence proving it. The same video 47 million people have already watched." "The police claim that video is edited." "The police can claim whatever they want," Maya interrupted. "But the video has metadata, it has timestamps, it has geolocation data, and it has Officer Torres' badge number visible in the reflection on the boat's window. If they claim it's edited, I welcome them to provide their evidence. Otherwise, they're just desperate." A man in the back, one of the uniformed officers, shouted, "You're a criminal trying to smear good cops. You think people are stupid enough to believe. I think people are smart enough to watch a video of me being thrown off a boat and draw their own conclusions," Maya shot back. "I think people are smart enough to ask why 3 other researchers are dead. I think people are smart enough to wonder why the Miami-Dade Marine Unit has the highest rate of accidental deaths in the entire state. So yes, I think people are smart. That's what your department is betting against." The room exploded again. India was trying to end the conference, but Maya wasn't done. "One more thing," she said, and her voice cut through the noise. "To every officer who's ever thought about doing what Crane and Torres did, you're being watched. Your body cameras, your dash cams, your casual conversations, they're all being recorded. And to every victim of police violence who's been told no one would believe them, I believe you. And after today, millions of people do too." India pulled her away from the microphone as reporters surged forward shouting questions. Security formed a human wall, pushing them back toward the exit. As they reached the hallway, Maya's legs finally gave out. India caught her, and 2 nurses rushed over with a wheelchair. "You did it," India whispered as they wheeled Maya back to her room. "You actually did it." "Did what?" "Made it impossible for them to bury you." But India was wrong. The police weren't trying to bury Maya anymore. They were trying to destroy her. At 2:47 p.m., the Miami-Dade Police Department released Maya's criminal history, a doctored file showing 3 prior arrests for drug possession, all dismissed due to technicalities. The file was completely fabricated, but it spread through conservative media like wildfire. At 3:15 p.m., an anonymous source leaked Maya's college disciplinary record claiming she'd been suspended for aggressive behavior toward campus security. The truth she'd organized a protest against racial profiling by campus police was buried in the fine print. At 4:02 p.m., a deepfake video surfaced showing Maya allegedly admitting in a private conversation that she'd staged the entire incident for publicity. The video was crude, obviously fake to anyone who looked closely, but thousands shared it as proof she was lying. India watched the smear campaign unfold with growing horror. "They're coordinated. This is coming from somewhere high up." Maya, back in her hospital bed with fresh IV bags, just nodded tiredly. "Of course they are. I threatened their entire operation. They're going to throw everything at me." "Maya, this is character assassination. By tomorrow, half the country will think you're a fraud." "Let them think it," Maya said. "The people who matter, the FBI, the federal prosecutors, the investigators, they have the real evidence. The video, the GPS data, the medical reports. They know I'm telling the truth." "And the other half of the country," Maya smiled grimly, "they're about to get very loud." She was right. By 6:00 p.m., protests had erupted in 17 cities. Not small demonstrations, massive crowds, thousands of people marching with signs that read "Justice for Maya" and "Cops who kill belong in prison." By 8:00 p.m., the protesters had reached Miami-Dade Police Headquarters. 10,000 people surrounded the building, chanting Maya's name, demanding arrests. By 10:00 p.m., someone had leaked Captain Blackwell's financial records showing the $3 million her husband's construction company had received from Nexus Shipping Corporation, the same company Maya had accused of illegal dumping. By midnight, Officer Michael Torres turned himself in to the FBI field office in downtown Miami, accompanied by a lawyer and carrying a hard drive containing every piece of evidence from the Marine unit's operations over the past 3 years. India got the call at 12:47 a.m. She was sleeping in a chair beside Maya's hospital bed when her phone rang. "Ms. Richardson, this is Special Agent Jennifer Park with the FBI. I'm calling to inform you that we're taking over the investigation into the attempted murder of your sister. We've also opened investigations into the deaths of James Chen, Patricia Okonkwo, and Marcus Webb, as well as into corruption allegations against the Miami-Dade Marine Unit." India sat up straight, her heart pounding. "You're taking over officially." "Officially. And Ms. Richardson, you should know Officer Torres just gave us everything. Bank records, radio transcripts, body camera footage from multiple incidents. What your sister testified about in Congress was just the surface. This goes deeper than anyone realized." Maya had woken up during the conversation. "Put it on speaker," she whispered. India did. "How deep?" India asked Agent Park. There was a pause. "Then, we're looking at potential RICO charges, organized crime statutes. This wasn't just a few corrupt cops. This was a systematic operation involving police officers, shipping companies, waste management corporations, and potentially elected officials. Dr. Richardson's testimony didn't just expose a crime. It exposed a criminal enterprise that's been operating for at least 7 years." Maya and India stared at each other in shock. 7 years, Maya said. "How many people died?" "We're still determining that," Agent Park said, "but Torres's evidence suggests at least 12 accidental deaths connected to the Marine Unit, and that's just what we've confirmed so far. 12 people. 12 human beings thrown into the ocean like garbage their families told it was accidents or suicides or disappearances. 12 people who spoke up, who asked questions, who threatened the operation." Maya felt sick. "What happens now?" India asked. "Now we build the case," Agent Park said. "And Dr. Richardson, you should know that as of 20 minutes ago, the Justice Department has assigned you a protective detail. 2 federal marshals will be outside your hospital room within the hour. We're taking this seriously." After Agent Park hung up, Maya and India sat in silence for a long moment. Then India started laughing, that same slightly hysterical sound from earlier. "They tried to kill you. They tried to erase you. And instead, you brought down their entire empire." "I didn't do it alone," Maya said quietly. "Torres gave them the evidence. Rosa Martinez saved my life. You're fighting the legal battle. All those protesters outside, they're making it impossible to ignore. This is bigger than me now." "It started with you, though," India said. "You refused to stay quiet, even when it nearly killed you." Maya looked down at her bandaged wrists, at the IV line feeding fluids back into her dehydrated body. She thought about the 18 hours in the water, about the sharks, about the moment when Crane's boot had slammed into her chest. "Mom used to say the ocean remembers who we are," Maya said softly. "I think she was right. They tried to drown me in it, but the ocean gave me back, and now everyone knows what they did." India squeezed her hand. "What happens when they arrest Crane?" Maya's expression hardened. "Then I look him in the eye and watch him realize he failed. That's what happens." The arrest came 36 hours later. Federal agents raided Derek Crane's home at 5:00 a.m., pulling him out of bed in front of news cameras that had been tipped off minutes before. The footage of him in handcuffs, still in his pajamas, his face purple with rage. That video got almost as many views as the one showing him throwing Maya overboard. Captain Susan Blackwell was arrested at her office at 7:30 a.m. She tried to resist screaming about her rights, about corruption in the FBI, about political persecution. The agents didn't care. By noon, 17 officers and 12 corporate executives were in federal custody. By 3:00 p.m., the Miami-Dade police chief had resigned. By 6:00 p.m., the governor of Florida was calling for a complete overhaul of police oversight in the state. Maya watched it all from her hospital bed, India beside her, both of them eating terrible hospital food and reading news updates on their phones. "It's really happening," India said wonderingly. "They're actually going to face justice." "Maybe," Maya said. "Or maybe they'll get plea deals. Maybe they'll get sympathetic juries. Maybe the system will protect them like it always does." "You don't believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore," Maya admitted. "I survived something impossible. I exposed something huge. And now what I wait for a trial that might not convict them. I wait for the next researcher to get thrown overboard by the next corrupt cop." India set down her phone and looked at her sister seriously. "Or you do what Mom did. You keep fighting. You turn this into something bigger. You make sure no one else ends up in that water." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Then, I want to start a foundation, legal defense for whistleblowers, support for families of people killed by police, funding for independent investigations." "With what money?" "With whatever settlement we get from the civil suit," Maya said. and with whatever speaking fees I can command as the woman who survived shark-infested waters to expose police corruption. People want to hear this story, India, so I'll tell it, over and over, until something changes." India smiled. "Mom would be proud." "Mom would tell me I'm being reckless and stubborn and need to take better care of myself," Maya said. "But yeah, she'd be proud." A knock on the door interrupted them. One of the federal marshals poked his head in. "Dr. Richardson, there's someone here who wants to see you. Says her name is Rosa Martinez. Should I let her in?" Maya's face lit up. "Yes, absolutely yes." Rosa entered carrying a huge bouquet of flowers and looking uncomfortable in the sterile hospital environment. "I don't like hospitals," she said by way of greeting, "but I wanted to check on you, make sure you're actually okay and not just pretending for the cameras." "I'm actually okay," Maya said. "Thanks to you." Rosa waved this off. "You survived before I found you. I just gave you a ride." "You gave me a platform," Maya corrected. "You let me use your boat to livestream. You didn't turn me over to the police when they demanded it. You saved my life in more ways than one." Rosa looked embarrassed. "Yeah, well, I know what it's like when cops decide you're the enemy. My family, we're immigrants. We've been harassed, threatened, had our permits delayed for no reason. When I heard your story, I knew it was real. I've seen what they do." The three women, Maya, India, and Rosa, spent the next hour talking about corruption, about survival, about what came next. And somewhere in that conversation, Maya realized something important. She wasn't alone anymore. She had allies. She had people who believed her, who would fight alongside her, who understood what was at stake. The ocean hadn't just given her back her life. It had given her an army. Rosa left the hospital room at 8:47 p.m., promising to testify at whatever trial came next, and Maya finally allowed herself to sleep. Real sleep, not the half-conscious survival state she'd maintained in the ocean. But 3 hours later, her phone started ringing with a number she didn't recognize. India grabbed it first, her lawyer instincts on high alert. "Who is the—" A male voice, young and shaking. "Is Dr. Richardson there, please? I need to talk to her. It's Michael Torres." India's hand tightened on the phone. "The officer who threw my sister off a boat. You've got some nerve." "I turned myself in," Torres interrupted desperately. "I gave the FBI everything. I'm trying to make this right, but I need to talk to her. Please, I need to apologize. I need her to know." "She doesn't owe you anything," India said coldly. But Maya was already reaching for the phone. India hesitated, then handed it over. "Officer Torres," Maya said, her voice neutral. "Dr. Richardson, His voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. I should have stopped him. I should have refused. I should have done anything except vote to kill you." Maya was quiet for a moment, feeling the phantom pain in her wrists where the handcuffs had cut through. "But you didn't." "No, I didn't, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life." He was crying now, making no attempt to hide it. "I was scared. Crane threatened my mother's immigration status, threatened my job, but that's not an excuse. Nothing's an excuse for what I did." "Why are you calling me?" Maya asked. "Because you deserve to hear this from me directly, not through lawyers or news reports. And because I want you to know the evidence I gave the FBI, it's going to convict everyone involved. Crane, Blackwell, the corporate executives, all of them. I made sure of it." "That doesn't bring back the 3 people who died before me." No, Torres agreed quietly. "It doesn't, but maybe it prevents number 4, 5, 6. Maybe it means something." Maya closed her eyes, thinking about Dr. Chen, about Dr. Okonkwo, about Marcus Webb, thinking about their families who never got answers, who were told their loved ones died accidentally. "Torres, did you know about the others, the ones who died before me?" Silence, then I suspected. There were whispers in the department. Jokes about the Marine unit being where problems disappeared. But I didn't know for sure until I started going through the files. Dr. Richardson, they kept records, like it was some kind of sick scorecard. Maya's stomach turned. Records of murders. Coded, but yeah, dates, locations, outcomes. Chen, Okonkwo, Webb, they're all there. And 9 others we haven't identified yet. People who ask too many questions about the dumping operations. People who threatened to expose them. 12 deaths. Agent Park had said 12, but hearing it confirmed by someone who'd been inside the operation made it real in a way statistics couldn't. "You're going to testify to all of this?" Maya asked. "I already did. 6 hours with federal prosecutors. I told them everything I know, everything I saw, everything I heard. And I'll testify at trial no matter what threats Crane makes, no matter what happens to me afterward." "Why now?" Maya asked. "Why not 6 months ago, a year ago? Why did it take them trying to kill me for you to grow a conscience?" Torres was quiet for so long. Maya thought he'd hung up. Then, because I watched you survive, I watched the live stream from the fishing boat, saw you bleeding and exhausted and still fighting, and I realized if you could survive what we did to you, I could survive telling the truth. You shamed me into being brave. Maya didn't know what to say to that. I don't expect forgiveness, Torres continued. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that what you did, testifying to Congress, surviving the ocean, refusing to be silenced, it mattered. It changed everything. After he hung up, India looked at her sister carefully. You okay? I don't know, Maya admitted. Part of me wants to hate him. Part of me thinks he's just another coward trying to save himself. But part of me, she stopped. Part of you what? Part of me thinks maybe people can choose to be better. Even after doing terrible things, maybe especially after doing terrible things. India frowned. You're not going soft on him, are you? No, Maya said firmly. He participated in attempted murder. He deserves to be punished. But if his testimony puts the others away for life, then his cowardice finally did something useful. The arraignment happened 72 hours later. Maya was discharged from the hospital at 6:00 a.m. that morning against Dr. Hassan's continued medical advice so she could be in the courtroom. The federal marshals assigned to protect her weren't happy about it, but they couldn't stop her. The Miami federal courthouse was surrounded by barricades and protesters hundreds on each side. Supporters holding Justice for Maya signs faced off against people holding Back the Blue signs with police in riot gear standing between them to prevent violence. Maya's motorcade 2 federal vehicles with the marshals had to push through the crowd. People pounded on the windows, some cheering, some screaming insults. Someone threw a rock that cracked the rear windshield. Stay down, Marshal Davis ordered, pushing Maya's head below the window line. I'm not hiding, Maya said, but she didn't fight him. The rage in some of those faces was terrifying. Inside the courthouse, they were escorted through a private entrance to avoid the crowd. India met them there along with the federal prosecutors Special Agent Park and Assistant U.S. Attorney Marcus Webb. No relation to the journalist who died, but the name still made Maya flinch. Dr. Richardson, AUSA Webb said, shaking her hand. Thank you for being here. I know this isn't easy. Easier than being shark bait, Maya said, and he had the grace to look uncomfortable. The courtroom was packed. Maya spotted Rosa Martinez in the 3rd row wearing what looked like her only formal dress. She gave Maya a thumbs up. Several Congress members who'd been at Maya's testimony were there too, including Representative Angela Morrison, who nodded solemnly at Maya. Then the defendants were brought in. Derek Crane entered first. Shackled at the wrists and ankles, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his uniform. He looked diminished somehow, smaller than he'd seemed on the boat. But when his eyes found Maya, the hatred in them was pure and undiluted. She stared back, refusing to look away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. Captain Susan Blackwell came next, her iron-gray hair pulled back severely, her expression one of absolute contempt. She didn't look at Maya at all, just stared straight ahead, like this was all beneath her. Then came the corporate executives, men in expensive suits who'd orchestrated the dumping operations, who'd paid police officers to protect their crimes, who'd authorized the elimination of anyone who threatened their profits. 17 defendants total. The judge, an elderly black woman named Harriet Chen, surveyed them all with an expression of profound disgust. The defendants will rise, she said, her voice carrying despite her age. They stood. Some looked defiant. Some looked terrified. Crane just looked angry. You are charged under federal RICO statutes with operating a criminal enterprise, Judge Chen began. Additionally, you face charges of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, environmental crimes, and corruption. How do you plead? The defense attorneys entered not guilty pleas for all defendants. Expected, but it still made Maya's jaw clench. Then AUSA Webb stood. Your Honor, the government requests that all defendants be held without bail. We have evidence that several attempted to flee the jurisdiction before their arrests. We have evidence of witness intimidation, and we have evidence of continued criminal conspiracy even from custody. That continued conspiracy, Judge Chen's eyebrows rose. Explain. Webb nodded to Agent Park, who pulled out a tablet. Your Honor, 3 days ago, Captain Blackwell made a phone call from her jail cell to a known associate. We have the recording. The courtroom audio system crackled to life with Blackwell's voice. I don't care what you have to do. Richardson needs to have an accident before trial. Make it look random, a mugging, a car accident, whatever. Just make sure she doesn't testify. The courtroom erupted. Judge Chen's gavel came down like a gunshot. Order, I will have order. Maya felt ice in her veins. They were still trying to kill her. Even in jail, even facing life in prison, they were still trying to silence her. India's hand found hers and squeezed hard. "Your Honor," Blackwell's lawyer stood quickly. "That recording is taken out of context. My client was merely soliciting murder for hire." Judge Chen cut him off. "Counselor, sit down before I hold you in contempt. All defendants are remanded without bail pending trial. And Captain Blackwell, you've just earned yourself additional charges. Bailiff, remove them." As the deputies led the defendants out, Crane turned to look directly at Maya. His mouth formed words she could read clearly. "You're dead." Marshal Davis moved to block her view, but Maya had already seen it. Already felt the chill of the threat. Outside the courtroom, the media was a feeding frenzy. Reporters shouted questions as Maya and India tried to push through to their vehicle. "Dr. Richardson, how do you feel about the murder for hire plot? Are you afraid they'll try again? Do you think you'll be safe until trial?" India pulled Maya close, the marshals forming a protective barrier, but Maya stopped, turned to face the cameras. "I survived being thrown to sharks," she said clearly. "I survived 18 hours in the Atlantic. I survived a storm that should have killed me. If they think a hired thug is going to scare me into silence, they don't know who they're dealing with." "Are you concerned for your safety?" a reporter pressed. "Of course I am," Maya said. "I'm terrified, but I'm also angry, and anger is more useful than fear. These people murdered 12 human beings. They poisoned our oceans. They betrayed the public trust. And now they're trying to intimidate me from beyond their jail cells. That should tell you everything you need to know about their guilt." "What's your message to other potential whistleblowers?" another reporter asked. Maya thought about Torres, about his phone call, about his decision to finally do the right thing despite his fear. "My message is this. The truth is stronger than their threats. Your voice matters more than their power. And you're not alone. When you speak up, others will stand with you. I'm living proof of that." The marshals finally got her into the vehicle and they drove away, leaving the chaos behind. But Maya's hands were shaking in her lap. "That was brave," India said quietly. "That was stupid," Marshal Davis corrected. "Ma'am, with all due respect, announcing that you're not afraid just paints a bigger target on your back." "The target was already there," Maya said. "At least this way, if something happens to me, everyone will know it wasn't random." India's phone buzzed. She checked it and her expression darkened. "Maya, you need to see this." It was a news alert breaking Michael Torres found dead in federal protective custody. Apparent suicide. Maya read it 3 times, the words not making sense. Torres was dead. Torres, who'd called her crying, who'd promised to testify, who'd given the FBI everything, that wasn't suicide, she said numbly. "No." India agreed. That was a message. The FBI confirmed it 6 hours later. Torres had been found hanged in his cell at 4:23 p.m. less than 2 hours after the arraignment. Security cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned for a 17-minute window. No other prisoners had been in the area. The guard on duty claimed he'd heard nothing unusual. Agent Park delivered the news to Maya in person at the safe house where the marshals had taken her. Her face was grim. "This is a professional hit," Park said bluntly. "Someone got to him. We're investigating everyone who had access to that facility, but they're good at covering their tracks," Maya finished. "That's what you're saying. They've been getting away with murder for 7 years. They know how to make it look like something it's not." "We still have Torres's testimony," Park said. "The recordings, the documents he provided. His death doesn't erase what he told us." "But it prevents him from being cross-examined," India pointed out. "Defense attorneys will argue his testimony is hearsay without him there to verify it." Park nodded reluctantly. "It complicates things, but it doesn't destroy the case. We have the video of you being thrown overboard. We have the financial records showing payments from Nexus Corporation to police charities, Vuot, and Payson, Blackwell's husband. We have GPS data witness testimony from Captain Martinez, your medical records. The case is still solid." "Is it solid enough to convict?" Maya demanded. "Because Torres just died, to stop his testimony from reaching trial. If they're willing to kill a cop in federal custody, what does that tell you about how powerful these people are?" Park didn't have an answer for that. The memorial service for Michael Torres happened 3 days later. His mother, a small Mexican woman who spoke limited English, sobbed through the entire ceremony. She kept saying the same thing over and over, "Mi hijo era bueno, mi hijo era bueno." My son was good. Maya attended against everyone's advice. The marshals insisted on a disguise, a wig, sunglasses, different clothes. She looked nothing like the woman who'd been all over the news. Torres's mother didn't know who she was at first, but when Maya approached to offer condolences to say she was sorry for her loss, the older woman's eyes suddenly focused. "You are the doctor," she said in heavily accented English, "the one who survived." Maya nodded. Mrs. Torres grabbed her hands, holding them with surprising strength. "Miguel called me. After he gave the testimony, he said you made him brave. He said you showed him how to be strong." Maya's throat closed up. "Mrs. Torres, I'm so sorry. If I had known they would—" "No," the older woman interrupted fiercely. "No, sorry. Miguel made his choice. First he made wrong choice, then he made right choice. The right choice killed him, but it was still right. You understand?" Maya nodded, unable to speak. "He wanted to be good man, Mrs." Torres continued, tears streaming down her weathered face. Like his father before the police in Mexico killed him for asking questions about cartels, Miguel became police to be different, but the system it makes good men bad, until someone like you reminds them who they were supposed to be. She pulled Maya into a hug, and Maya hugged her back, both of them crying for different reasons. When they separated, Mrs. Torres said something that would haunt Maya for months. "They will try to kill you too, but you must keep living. For Miguel, for all the others who cannot speak. You must be the voice they tried to drown." The trial date was set for 3 months later, giving both sides time to prepare. But those 3 months were warfare. The defense leaked Maya's juvenile records, a shoplifting charge from when she was 14, dismissed after community service. They leaked her mother's arrest history from environmental protests. They even found out a professor from her undergraduate years who claimed she'd been difficult and confrontational in class. The prosecution countered with financial forensics showing that Nexus Corporation had paid over $47 million to various Miami-Dade officials and police over 7 years. They found environmental reports showing toxic waste levels in the ocean had dropped 73% since the arrest. They produced medical experts who testified that Maya's injuries were consistent with prolonged ocean exposure and restraint trauma, but the real bombshell came 6 weeks before trial. Agent Park called Maya at 11:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. "We found the other 9. Maya had been half asleep. "What?" "The other 9 victims in Torres's records. We identified them, and Dr. Richardson, 2 of them are still alive." Maya sat up so fast she got dizzy. "What? How is that possible?" "They survived like you did, but they were too afraid to come forward. They thought no one would believe them, thought the police would finish the job. But when they saw your story, when they saw you testifying—" Park's voice caught with emotion. "They called us. They're willing to testify. 2 survivors. 2 more people who'd been thrown into the ocean and lived to tell about it. Their names were Jennifer Wu and Darius Thompson. Jennifer had been an EPA inspector who'd gotten too close to the dumping sites. Darius had been a fishing charter captain who'd witnessed the dumps and tried to report them. Both had been arrested on fake charges, taken to boats, and thrown overboard. Both had survived through luck, skill, and desperation. Both had spent years looking over their shoulders, afraid to speak up, until Maya showed them it was possible. The prosecution added them to the witness list immediately. The defense went into panic mode, filing motion after motion to exclude their testimony, claiming it was prejudicial, that it constituted a pattern of behavior that was irrelevant to Maya's specific case. Judge Chen denied every motion. The trial began on October 15th with jury selection. It took 2 weeks to seat 12 jurors and 4 alternates, 8 women, 4 men, racially diverse, ranging from a retired teacher to a construction worker to a software engineer. Opening statements began on October 29th. AUSA Webb stood before the jury, his expression somber. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about power and its abuse. It's about police officers who were supposed to protect and serve, but instead served only themselves and their corporate masters. It's about a conspiracy to silence anyone who threatened their profits. And it's about 3 people who survived being murdered and 12 who didn't." He clicked a remote and the courtroom screens lit up with photos. Dr. James Chen, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, Marcus Webb. 9 other faces, people whose families had thought they'd died accidentally. "These people are dead because they asked questions," Webb continued. "They investigated environmental crimes. They reported what they saw. They threatened to expose a multi-million-dollar operation, and for that, they were taken out to sea and drowned." He clicked again. Maya's face appeared her official university photo. Dr. Maya Richardson was supposed to be victim number 13. Police officers Derek Crane and Michael Torres arrested her on fabricated charges, drove her to a boat instead of a police station, handcuffed her, weighted her down, and threw her into shark-infested waters. They laughed as she sank. They took selfies. They radioed back that the problem was solved. Another click. The GoPro footage began to play. Even though everyone in the courtroom had seen it dozens of times, people still gasped. Crane's boot, Maya's body flying backward, the splash, the laughter. But Dr. Richardson survived, Webb said as the video ended. She cut through handcuffs with Coral. She avoided shark attacks through knowledge and courage. She swam for hours through a tropical storm. And she lived to tell you the truth about what these defendants did. He gestured to the defense table where Crane sat stone-faced and Blackwell stared at the ceiling like she was bored. The defense will tell you this is all a misunderstanding, that Dr. Richardson jumped voluntarily, that the video is misleading, that their clients are dedicated public servants being persecuted for doing their jobs. Webb's voice hardened. Don't believe them. Believe the evidence. Believe the survivors. Believe the 12 people who can't speak for themselves anymore because these defendants silenced them forever. The defense's opening statement was delivered by Jonathan Harding, a high-priced attorney from D.C. with a reputation for getting guilty cops acquitted. Ladies and gentlemen, Harding began smoothly, the prosecution wants you to believe a fantastic story. They want you to believe that decorated police officers, men and women who've spent their careers protecting this community suddenly became cartoon villains throwing people to sharks. Does that sound reasonable to you? He paced in front of the jury, his expression friendly and confused. Or is it more reasonable that Richardson, a known activist with a history of confrontations with authority, resisted arrest and created a dangerous situation that officers were forced to restrain her, that in the struggle she went overboard? Several jurors frowned. Others looked uncertain. The prosecution showed you a 47-second video clip, Harding continued. 47 seconds out of a 30-minute encounter. What happened in the other 29 minutes and 13 seconds? What did Dr. Richardson do that required officers to restrain her? What threats did she make? What violence did she attempt? He paused for effect. You won't hear answers to those questions because the prosecution doesn't want you to ask them. They want you to see Richardson as a victim, but the evidence will show she's a willing participant in a campaign to defame and destroy hardworking police officers who are simply trying to do their jobs. Maya's hands clenched in her lap. India leaned over and whispered, "Stay calm. His job is to provoke you." But it was hard to stay calm when a lawyer was calling her a liar in front of 12 strangers who would decide the fate of the men who tried to kill her. The prosecution's first witness was Captain Rosa Martinez. Rosa took the stand wearing the same dress she'd worn to the arraignment, looking profoundly uncomfortable but determined. She testified about finding Maya's beacon signal, about deploying the drone, about pulling a handcuffed, bleeding woman from the ocean at 1:47 a.m. What was her condition when you found her? Webb asked. Bad, Rosa said bluntly. Hypothermic dehydrated, multiple wounds. She looked like someone who'd been fighting for her life. Did she tell you what happened? She said police threw her off a boat, said they tried to kill her for testifying about corruption. Harding objected. Hearsay, Your Honor. Overruled, Judge Chen said. It goes to the witness's state of mind and her actions following the rescue. Rosa continued. She asked to use my phone. She wanted to live stream her statement before anyone could stop her. I thought she was crazy at first, but then she started talking and I realized she was protecting herself, making sure the whole world knew what happened so they couldn't cover it up. What was your impression of Dr. Richardson when you found her? Webb asked. Rosa looked directly at the jury. She was the bravest person I've ever met. She'd just survived something impossible, and instead of crying or sleeping or giving up, she was fighting. Still fighting. That's not someone who jumped off a boat voluntarily. That's someone who survived murder. Harding's cross-examination was brutal. Ms. Martinez, isn't it true that you have multiple complaints against Miami-Dade police in your file? Rosa's jaw tightened. Yes. Isn't it true that you've accused officers of harassment of targeting your fishing business unfairly? Because they did harass me because I'm an immigrant and they thought they could. So you have a bias against police, Harding interrupted. You were predisposed to believe Dr. Richardson's story because it confirmed your own prejudices. I believed her because she was bleeding and handcuffed and half dead in the middle of the ocean, Rosa snapped. You don't fake that. But you can exaggerate it, can't you? You can take an unfortunate accident and turn it into a conspiracy theory, Webb objected. Judge Chen sustained it. But the damage was done. The jury had heard the insinuation. The second witness was more devastating. Jennifer Wu took the stand on day 3 of testimony. She was 38, a former EPA inspector, and she looked terrified. Her hands shook as she was sworn in. Webb took her through her story gently. How she'd investigated Nexus Corporation's dumping permits. How she'd found discrepancies. how she'd been arrested on false drug charges, the exact same playbook they'd used on Maya. "What happened after you were arrested?" Webb asked. Jennifer's voice barely rose above a whisper. "They took me to a boat instead of the station. Officer Crane was there. He told me I should have minded my own business." "Then what happened?" "He pushed me overboard. I was handcuffed. I went under, got tangled in some fishing nets that were floating near the surface. I couldn't breathe, couldn't get free. I thought I was dead." "How did you escape?" "The nets had been there so long they were rotten. I pulled and kicked until they broke. Then I swam until I found a buoy to hold on to. A tourist boat found me 6 hours later." "Did you report what happened?" Jennifer shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I was too scared. Crane told me before he pushed me that if I survived, he'd finish the job. He said my family would have accidents. I believed him." "What made you come forward now?" Jennifer looked directly at Maya, who was sitting behind the prosecution table. "I saw Dr. Richardson on the news. I saw her refuse to be afraid, and I realized if I stayed silent, if I let them keep getting away with it, I was part of the problem. So I called the FBI." Harding's cross-examination of Jennifer was vicious. He attacked her credibility, questioned why she'd waited so long, suggested she was making it up for attention or a lawsuit settlement. But Jennifer held firm. "You can say whatever you want about me," she told him. "But I know what happened, and now everyone else does too." Darius Thompson testified on day 5. His story was similar, investigating the dumps getting arrested being thrown overboard. He'd survived by grabbing onto debris from an old wreck, staying there for 11 hours until a Coast Guard patrol found him. "I told them police tried to kill me," Darius said. "They didn't believe me, wrote it up as a diving accident. I was so exhausted I didn't fight it. I just wanted to survive." By the end of the second week, the prosecution had presented 17 witnesses, hundreds of documents, GPS records showing the boat's location when Maya was thrown overboard, financial records showing the money trail, and expert testimony about shark behavior, ocean currents, and hypothermia. The evidence was overwhelming, but Harding was good at his job. He created doubt where there should have been none. He suggested alternate explanations for every piece of evidence. He made the jury question whether they could really trust their own eyes. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Maya took the stand. She'd dressed carefully that morning, a simple blue dress, professional but not flashy. Her wrists were still scarred, the marks visible when she raised her right hand to be sworn in. Webb began with gentle questions, her background, her education, her research. Then they moved to the congressional testimony. "Why did you decide to testify?" Webb asked. "Because 3 people were already dead," Maya said clearly. "Because the ocean I dedicated my life to protecting was being poisoned. Because someone had to speak up and I had the evidence to prove what was happening." "Did you expect retaliation?" "I hoped there wouldn't be, but I wasn't surprised when it came." Webb walked her through the morning of her arrest, the run on the beach, Crane and Torres approaching her, the drive to the marina instead of the police station. "What were you thinking during that drive?" Webb asked. Maya's voice was steady, but her hands gripped the edge of the witness box. "I was thinking about my mother. She died fighting corruption too. Different corruption, but the same fight. And I was thinking, this is how it ends. This is how they win. But it didn't end." "No," Maya said, "because I refused to let it." She testified for 3 hours that day, describing every moment of her ordeal. The weights, the handcuffs, Crane's boot slamming into her chest, the fall, the cold shock of water, the shark circling. Several jurors were crying by the time she described cutting her wrists on the coral to break the handcuffs. "I knew I was destroying my own skin," Maya said. "I could feel it tearing, could see my blood in the water. But I also knew that if I didn't get free, I was dead anyway, so I kept sawing until the chain broke." "Were you afraid?" Webb asked. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "Every single second. But fear wasn't useful. Action was. So I acted." When Webb finished, Judge Chen called a recess before cross-examination. Maya walked off the stand on shaking legs, and India met her in the hallway outside the courtroom. "You were perfect," India said, hugging her sister hard. "I told the truth," Maya corrected. "Whether that's perfect depends on what the jury believes." Harding's cross-examination began the next morning, and it was exactly as brutal as Maya had anticipated. "Dr. Richardson, you have a history of confrontations with authority, don't you?" "I have a history of questioning injustice," Maya replied evenly. "You were arrested at a protest in college." "I was arrested for exercising my First Amendment rights. The charges were dismissed." "You've written articles critical of law enforcement." I've written articles critical of corruption. Sometimes that corruption happens to be in law enforcement." Harding smiled thinly. "You're a very intelligent woman, Dr. Richardson, Ph.D. from MIT published researcher professor. You know how to craft a narrative, don't you?" "I know how to present evidence," Maya said, "which is what I did at the congressional hearing." "And you knew that presenting that evidence would make you famous." Maya stared at him. "I knew it might get me killed, which as we've established it nearly did." "Or," Harding said, "you knew it would make you a celebrity, the brave whistleblower fighting corrupt cops. Book deals, speaking tours, television appearances. Quite lucrative, isn't it?" Webb was on his feet. "Objection, argumentative, and assumes facts not in evidence." "Sustained," Judge Chen said. "Mr. Harding, ask questions, don't make speeches." But again the jury had heard it. Harding continued for 2 more hours trying to poke holes in Maya's testimony, trying to suggest she'd exaggerated her injuries, trying to imply she'd gone overboard voluntarily and only claimed attempted murder later. Maya refused to be rattled. She answered every question calmly, referred back to the evidence, and never took the bait. Finally, Harding asked, "Dr. Richardson, isn't it possible that you misinterpreted what happened, that in your fear and panic you assumed malice where there was only an unfortunate accident?" Maya leaned forward, looking him directly in the eye. "Mr. Harding, Officer Crane told me I should have kept my mouth shut about their business. Then he kicked me off a boat in shark-infested waters while I was handcuffed and waited. That's not a misinterpretation. That's attempted murder. And the 12 people who died before me don't get to testify about whether they misinterpreted their deaths." The courtroom went absolutely silent. Harding had no response to that. He sat down. The trial lasted 7 weeks total. The prosecution rested their case on day 34. The defense put up their own witnesses, character witnesses for the defendant's experts who questioned the evidence, former colleagues who swore Crane and Blackwell were honest cops. But they couldn't erase the video. They couldn't explain away the financial records. And they couldn't discredit 3 survivors who all told the same story. Closing arguments happened on a Friday in late November. The jury received the case at 3:00 p.m. They deliberated for 4 days. Maya spent those 4 days in the safe house, unable to eat, barely sleeping, pacing like a caged animal. India stayed with her along with the marshals. Rosa called every day to check in. On Tuesday afternoon at 2:17 p.m., the jury sent word that they'd reached a verdict. The courtroom filled within minutes. Maya sat between India and Agent Park, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The jury filed in. None of them looked at the defendants. That was supposed to be a good sign, but Maya couldn't let herself hope. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Chen asked. The foreperson, a middle-aged black man who worked in IT, stood. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the deaths of Dr. James Chen, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, Marcus Webb, and 9 other identified victims, how do you find guilty?" Maya's breath caught. "On the charge of attempted murder of Dr. Maya Richardson, how do you find guilty?" India grabbed Maya's hand. "On charges of RICO conspiracy, environmental crimes, obstruction of justice, and corruption, how do you find guilty on all counts?" The courtroom erupted. Judge Chen's gavel pounded. Crane was shouting something, his face purple with rage. Blackwell sat frozen, her face white as paper. Maya just closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." The sentencing happened 3 weeks later. Derek Crane received 35 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Captain Susan Blackwell received 22 years. The corporate executives received sentences ranging from 10 to 18 years. Before imposing sentence, Judge Chen addressed the defendants directly. "You took an oath to serve and protect," she said, her voice cutting. "Instead, you served greed and protected criminals. You murdered 12 people and tried to murder 3 more. You poisoned the environment for profit. You betrayed everything your badges were supposed to represent. The only regret I have is that I cannot sentence you to longer terms." Then she turned to Maya, who was sitting in the gallery. "Dr. Richardson, please stand." Maya stood confused. "I want to thank you," Judge Chen said, her formal demeanor slipping slightly. "You risked everything to expose this corruption. You survived the impossible, and you refused to be silent even when silence would have been safer. Because of you, 12 families have answers. Because of you, this criminal enterprise is destroyed. Because of you, the next researcher who uncovers corruption might not have to fear being thrown to the sharks." She paused. "The ocean tried to take you, but you proved stronger. Never forget that." Maya couldn't respond. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face as the courtroom broke into applause. The applause in the courtroom faded, but the weight of what came next pressed down on Maya, like the ocean had pressed down on her that day. Judge Chen's words echoed in her mind as the marshals escorted her out through the back entrance away from the media circus waiting outside. 35 years for Crane, 22 for Blackwell. Justice served, everyone would say. Case closed. But Maya knew better. The convictions were just the beginning. India was already on her phone before they reached the parking garage, fielding calls from reporters, talk show, producers, publishers. Yes, she'll consider it. No, not today. I'll get back to you. She hung up and looked at Maya with exhausted triumph. That was the 6th book offer, the 8th interview request. Someone from Hollywood wants to option your life story. Maya leaned against the concrete pillar, suddenly feeling every injury she'd sustained, every hour she'd spent in that water. I don't want to be famous, India. I wanted justice. You got justice. Now you get famous, whether you want it or not. India softened her tone. But you also get to decide what you do with that fame. Mom taught us that, remember, use the platform or let it use you. Maya closed her eyes, seeing her mother's face. Dr. Celeste Richardson had spent 20 years fighting chemical companies, organizing communities, testifying at hearings. The stress had eaten her alive from the inside, the cancer just the final symptom, but she'd never stopped fighting. Mom would tell me to rest first, Maya said quietly, to heal, to take care of myself before trying to save the world. Mom would tell you that, India agreed, but she never actually did it herself. Which is why she died at 53. The words hung between them heavy and true. Marshal Davis cleared his throat. Dr. Richardson, we need to discuss your security going forward. The protective detail is authorized for another 90 days, but after that I'm on my own, Maya finished. I know. The defendants have connections even from prison, Davis continued. Crane's got a brother who runs with some serious criminals. Blackwell's husband isn't happy about her conviction, and he's got money to hire problems. You need to be careful. I've been careful for months, Maya said, hearing the bitterness in her own voice. I'd like to stop being careful and start being normal again. Normal ended when you testified to Congress, India said bluntly. We're in different territory now. The safe house that night felt more like a prison than protection. Maya stood at the window watching the street below, seeing threats in every shadow. A car driving too slowly. A person walking their dog who glanced up at her building. She'd survived the ocean, survived the trial, but she couldn't survive living like this, always afraid, always watched, always waiting for the next attack. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. Saw the sentencing on the news. Proud of you, Hermana. When you're ready, come fishing. The ocean misses you. Maya stared at those words. The ocean misses you. She hadn't been back to the water since her rescue hadn't even been able to look at the Atlantic without her heart racing, her breath catching. The trauma was still too fresh, too raw. But Rosa was right about one thing. She couldn't let fear own her forever. The interview requests intensified over the next week. Maya turned down most of them, but India convinced her to accept 160 Minutes, a serious program that would let her tell the complete story without sensationalism. The interview was scheduled for December 10th, 3 weeks after the sentencing. The producer, a sharp woman named Patricia Holmes, met with Maya beforehand to discuss topics. They sat in a conference room at the CBS building, and Patricia was direct in a way Maya appreciated. I'm not going to ask you the shallow questions, Patricia said. Not how did you survive, or what does justice feel like. What I want to know is what comes next. You've exposed massive corruption, survived, attempted murder, won convictions. Now what? Do you go back to being a marine biologist? Do you become an activist? What does Dr. Maya Richardson do with the rest of her life? Maya had been asking herself the same question. Honestly, I don't know yet. That's fair, Patricia said, but think about it before the interview, because 12 million people are going to be watching and they want to know if your story ends with the trial or if this is just the beginning of something bigger. The interview itself aired on December 17th. Maya wore a simple black blazer, her scarred wrists visible when she gestured. The anchor Bill Morrison had been doing this for 40 years, and his questions were exactly what Patricia had promised, focused, probing, refusing to let Maya hide behind platitudes. Dr. Richardson, you've said that 3 other researchers investigating this same corruption are dead. Do you feel survivor's guilt? Maya had prepared for this question, but the answer still caught in her throat. Every day. I think about Dr. Chen, about Dr. Okonkwo, about Marcus Webb. I think about why I survived when they didn't. And the only answer I can come up with is that I survived so I could tell their stories too. so their deaths wouldn't be forgotten or covered up. You've been offered multiple book deals. Are you going to write about this? I'm considering it, not for the money or the fame, but because the full story needs to be told. How deep the corruption went, how many people were involved, how easy it is for systems meant to protect us to become systems of oppression instead. That's a strong word, oppression. It's an accurate word, Maya said firmly. When police officers can throw people into the ocean with impunity, when corporations can poison our waters, and buy protection when whistleblowers are murdered rather than heard, that's not just corruption. That's systematic oppression, born of anyone who threatens the powerful. Morrison leaned forward. Some people say you're being dramatic, that this was an isolated incident, not a systemic problem. Maya's expression hardened. 12 people are dead. That's not isolated. That's systematic. And anyone calling it dramatic should talk to the families of those 12 victims. Ask them if it feels isolated. What do you say to people who still don't believe your story, who think the video was staged or misleading? I say, look at the evidence, look at the conviction, look at the 35-year sentence Derek Crane received. Federal judges don't hand down sentences like that for misunderstandings. Maya paused. But honestly, I'm not interested in convincing people who've already decided not to believe me. I'm interested in reaching the people who've been silenced, who've been afraid to speak up. I want them to know they're not alone. The interview shifted to her future plans, and Maya found herself saying something she hadn't fully articulated even to herself. I'm starting a foundation, the Rising Tide Foundation. It'll provide legal defense for whistleblowers, financial support for families of people killed by police or corporate violence, and funding for independent environmental research. Everything the system failed to provide for the people who came before me. Morrison's eyebrows rose. That's ambitious and expensive. The civil settlement for Miami-Dade was substantial, Maya said carefully. India had negotiated a $127 million settlement, though that number wasn't public yet. I don't need that money to buy things. I need it to change things. The interview ended with Morrison asking about the sharks, the question Maya had been dreading. Dr. Richardson, you study shark behavior professionally. Did that knowledge save your life? Partly, Maya admitted. I knew that sharks typically aren't interested in humans as prey. They investigate, they test, but they rarely attack unless they perceive a threat or mistake us for their usual food. So when they circled me, I forced myself to stay calm, to not splash or panic. I played dead at one point, and it worked. They lost interest. Do you still love the ocean after what it put you through? Maya was quiet for a moment. The ocean didn't put me through anything. Men did. The ocean was just there, being what it is. Powerful, dangerous, beautiful, indifferent. It didn't try to kill me. It didn't try to save me. It just existed, and I survived within it. She looked directly at the camera. I don't blame the ocean. I blame the people who thought they could use it as a murder weapon. The interview got 14 million viewers, the highest ratings for 60 Minutes in 3 years. By the next morning, Maya's name was trending again, and the Foundation's website, which India had quickly set up, crashed from traffic. But with visibility came danger. On December 19th, 2 days after the interview aired, Maya was leaving a coffee shop near the safe house when a car jumped the curb heading straight for her. Marshall Davis tackled her out of the way, both of them hitting the pavement hard as the vehicle missed them by inches. The car didn't stop. It accelerated away, leaving burning rubber and the sharp smell of exhaust. Maya lay on the ground, Davis's body weight pressing her down, her heart hammering. "Did you get the plate?" she gasped. "Stolen vehicle," Davis said, helping her up. "Called in an hour ago from a parking lot in Homestead. This was a professional hit, doctor. They knew where you'd be and when." India arrived within minutes, her face white with terror and fury. "That's it. You're not staying in Miami anymore. We're moving you somewhere remote, somewhere they can't find you." "I can't hide forever," Maya protested, even as her hands shook from adrenaline. "And I can't let them scare me into silence." "They're not trying to scare you," India snapped. "They're trying to kill you. There's a difference." Agent Park showed up an hour later at the safe house with news. "We've identified the driver. Anthony Crane, Derek Crane's younger brother. Career criminal, suspected connections to organized crime. We've issued a warrant, but he's in the wind." "How did he know where I was, Maya demanded. "This safe house is supposed to be secure." Park's expression was grim. "We're investigating a possible leak. Someone in the department might have disclosed your location." "Jesus Christ," India breathed. "Even after the convictions, they're still coming after her." "The convictions made it worse," Park said. "Derek Crane's looking at 35 years. His brother wants revenge. And the corporate executives who got convicted, they've got money and connections. They're funding this. Maya felt cold clarity settle over her. Then I need to disappear for a while, but not hide. I need to be strategic. What does that mean? India asked. It means I do what makes them most afraid. I keep talking. I keep exposing them, but I do it from somewhere they can't reach me. Park nodded slowly. We can arrange that. Federal witness protection protocols, at least temporarily. But Dr. Richardson, you need to understand, once you're in the system, you lose your freedom. You go where we tell you when we tell you. You live under restrictions. Better restricted than dead? India said. But Maya was thinking about something Rosa had said. The ocean misses you. An idea was forming wild and probably insane, but maybe the only thing that made sense. I have a better plan, she said. One that keeps me safe and keeps me visible. 3 days later, Maya stood on the deck of Rosa's fishing vessel, the Santa Maria, feeling the ocean swell beneath her feet. The marshals had argued against this plan. India had called it reckless, but Maya had been firm. They expect me to hide on land, she'd said. They'll never think to look for me out here. Rosa had agreed immediately. You can work the boat help with catches stay out of sight from shore. We're heading to the Caribbean for winter fishing, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, places where American criminals have no jurisdiction. So Maya had packed a single bag, said goodbye to the safe house, and walked back onto a boat for the first time since Crane had thrown her from one. Her hands shook as she gripped the railing. The water below was the same blue-green as the Atlantic where she'd nearly died. The same salt smell, the same endless horizon. Rosa came to stand beside her. You going to be okay? I don't know, Maya admitted. Part of me wants to jump off this boat right now and never come back. Part of me knows I need to face this, or it'll own me forever. The ocean's not your enemy, Rosa said. You know that, right? It was just the weapon they used, like a gun or a knife. You don't blame the weapon. I know that intellectually, Maya said. Convincing my body is harder. The boat pushed away from the dock at 4:47 p.m. on December 23rd, heading south into open water. Maya stood at the stern watching Miami shrink behind them and tried not to think about the last time she'd been this far from land. That first night at sea was torture. Every creak of the boat, every splash of water against the hull made Maya jump. She barely slept, lying in the tiny cabin below deck, feeling the walls close in. Around 300 a.m. she gave up and went topside. Rosa was at the wheel, steering by instruments in starlight. Can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the water, Maya said. I see the sharks circling. I feel the handcuffs cutting into my wrists. I taste salt water. PTSD is a bitch, Rosa said bluntly. My father, he survived a cartel attack in Colombia. Took him years before he could hear fireworks without diving for cover. Trauma rewires your brain. How did he cope? Therapy, time, and facing the things that scared him instead of avoiding them. Rosa glanced at Maya. You're doing the right thing being out here. It's terrifying now, but it's the only way through. What if I can't get through it? Maya whispered. What if I'm broken permanently? Rosa's laugh was short and sharp. You swam through a tropical storm with your hands cuffed. You testified against corrupt cops. You stared down a federal courtroom full of people who wanted you dead. You're not broken, Hermana. You're still fighting. That's the opposite of broken. Over the next week, Maya slowly began to remember why she'd fallen in love with the ocean in the first place. She helped Rosa and her crew pull in catches red snapper mahi-mahi grouper. She studied water samples testing for pollution levels out of habit. She watched dolphins race alongside the boat at dawn, their joy uncomplicated and pure, and gradually the nightmares began to fade. On December 31st, they anchored off the coast of Jamaica near a small fishing village where Rosa had friends. The crew went ashore to celebrate New Year's, but Maya stayed on the boat, not ready to risk being recognized. India called at 11:00 p.m. Just checking in, you still alive out there? Still alive, Maya confirmed. How are things in Miami? Chaotic. The Foundation's getting hundreds of applications for support. Reporters won't stop calling, and Anthony Crane is still at large. FBI thinks he might have fled to Mexico. So business as usual, Maya said wryly. Maya, I need to ask you something. India's voice went serious. Are you planning to stay on this boat forever because the Foundation needs you? The families of the victims need you. I need you. Maya watched the moonlight dance on the water, thinking about Judge Chen's words. The ocean tried to take you, but you proved stronger. I'm coming back, Maya said, but I needed this time to heal first. to remember who I am outside of being a victim or a symbol. I needed to remember that I'm a scientist, a researcher, a person who loves this ocean despite what happened in it. And have you remembered? Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. Yeah, I think I have. She returned to Miami on January 15th, 3 months almost to the day since the sentencing. The Rising Tide Foundation had secured office space in downtown Miami, funded by Maya's settlement and a flood of donations from people inspired by her story. India had hired a small staff lawyers victim advocates researchers. Maya walked into the office at 9:00 a.m. and the entire staff stood up and applauded. She felt her face heat with embarrassment. I'm not a hero, she said. I'm just someone who survived. The real heroes are the people who didn't survive but tried anyway. A young woman stepped forward, maybe 25, with dark circles under her eyes. Dr. Richardson, my name is Alicia Chen. James Chen was my uncle. Maya's breath caught. Dr. Chen, the marine biologist who disappeared 18 months before Maya's testimony, the first victim they'd identified. I'm so sorry, Maya said inadequately. Don't be sorry, Alicia said, her voice stronger than Maya expected. Be effective. My uncle died trying to expose these criminals. You survived. So now you need to keep fighting for all of them. That's how you honor their memory, by making sure their deaths meant something. Maya nodded, feeling the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. Not a burden exactly, more like a purpose. The Foundation's first major case came in February. A young environmental engineer named Marcus Thompson, no relation to Darius, had been fired from his job after reporting illegal fracking waste disposal. His employer had blacklisted him in the industry, and now he was facing retaliation lawsuits designed to bankrupt him. Maya and the Foundation's legal team took his case pro bono and filed countersuits against the company. The case went to trial in April, and Maya testified about the importance of protecting whistleblowers, about how fear of retaliation kept people silent while corporations destroyed the environment. They won. Marcus was awarded $800,000 in damages, his termination was ruled wrongful, and the company was forced to cease their illegal disposal operations. This is what we do, Somin, Maya told her staff after the verdict. We make it safe for people to tell the truth. We make it cost more to silence whistleblowers than to hear them. But the Foundation's work made her enemies. Powerful enemies. In May, someone broke into the Foundation's offices and destroyed their servers, wiping out months of case files. In June, one of their lawyers received death threats serious enough that she quit. In July, a major donor withdrew funding after his company received threats from anonymous sources. India confronted Maya one night in her apartment. They're trying to destroy the Foundation without touching you directly. They learned from Crane's mistake, making you a martyr only made you more powerful. So now they're attacking everything around you. Then we rebuild, Maya said firmly. We back up our files off-site, we hire security, we find donors who can't be intimidated. And if that's not enough... Maya thought about the ocean, about the 18 hours she'd spent fighting to survive. Then we fight anyway, because giving up isn't an option. The breakthrough came in August. Agent Park called Maya with news that made her heart race. We found Anthony Crane. He's in custody, caught trying to cross from Mexico back into Texas. But Dr. Richardson, during his interrogation, he gave up something big. How big? He claims he was hired by someone to kill you. Not just revenge for his brother, he was paid $50,000 half up front. And he's willing to testify about who hired him in exchange for a reduced sentence. Maya felt ice in her veins. Who was it? That's the thing. He says it was someone inside law enforcement. Someone with access to your location, your schedule, your security protocols. He never met them face to face, just received instructions through encrypted messages. But he has the messages, the payment records, everything. Another cop? Maya said numbly. Even after all the convictions, there's still someone protecting the operation. Or seeking revenge for the arrests, Park said. Either way, we need you to come in and look at the evidence. See if any names or details ring a bell. Maya flew to Washington, D.C. the next day, escorted by federal marshals. The FBI field office was cold and fluorescent, everything gray and official. They showed her printouts of the encrypted messages Anthony Crane had received. Kill the Richardson woman, make it look random, 50,000 half, now half, on confirmation. She cannot be allowed to continue her work. The words were clinical, businesslike. No rage, no emotion, just a transaction. The payment came from an offshore account, Agent Park explained. We're still tracing it, but it went through 6 different banks in 4 countries before reaching Crane. Professional money laundering. So we're looking for someone with resources, Maya said. Someone sophisticated enough to hide their trail. And someone with access to law enforcement channels, Park added. Because Crane received real-time updates about your location, your movements. Whoever hired him was watching you through official surveillance. Maya felt sick. She'd trusted the marshals, trusted the FBI's protection, and someone within that system had been feeding information to her would-be killer. How do we find them? She asked. We're running forensic analysis on the messages tracking the payment trail, investigating everyone who had access to your security details. Park hesitated. But Dr. Richardson, this could take months, and in the meantime, you're still in danger. Maya thought about the foundation, about the cases they were building, about the people depending on them. She thought about hiding, about running about, letting fear win. No, she said firmly. I'm not hiding again. I'm going back to Miami, back to the foundation, and whoever hired Crane can come for me themselves if they want. I'm done being afraid. India called her crazy. The marshals called her reckless. Rosa, when Maya called to tell her, just laughed. That's the woman who survived the sharks, Rosa said. Welcome back, Hermana. The foundation's profile continued to grow through the fall. Maya gave speeches at universities, testified before state legislatures about police reform, appeared on podcasts and news shows. Every appearance was calculated to make herself too visible to kill quietly, too important to eliminate without massive public outcry. It was exhausting, it was dangerous, but it was working. By October, the Rising Tide Foundation had helped 17 whistleblowers, won 4 major lawsuits against corporations, and secured funding for independent environmental research across 3 states. They'd become exactly what Maya had promised Judge Chen, a voice for people who'd been silenced. Then came the call that changed everything. November 3rd, 10:47 p.m. Maya was in her office reviewing case files when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Dr. Richardson, a woman's voice, older, shaking. My name is Barbara Torres. I'm Michael Torres's mother. Maya sat up straight. Mrs. Torres, I'm so glad to hear from you. How are you? Not good, the older woman said. I need to tell you something. Something Miguel told me before he died. Something I was too afraid to say until now. What is it? Miguel said there was someone else. Someone higher up who gave Crane his orders. Someone who organized the whole operation but stayed hidden. He was going to tell the FBI, but he died before he could. Maya's heart pounded. Did he tell you who it was? He gave me a name. I wrote it down, but I was too scared to use it. I thought if I stayed quiet, they'd leave me alone. But they didn't. Someone broke into my house last week. They didn't take anything, just left a message on my mirror. Silence is golden. Mrs. Torres's voice broke. I'm tired of being scared, and I know Miguel would want me to tell you. What's the name? Maya asked, grabbing a pen. Lieutenant Raymond Walsh. He's still with Miami-Dade Works in Internal Affairs now. Miguel said Walsh was the one who connected the police with Nexus Corporation. He organized the payments, recruited the officers, ordered the killings. He's the one who had Miguel murdered in his cell. Maya's hand was shaking so badly she could barely write. Internal Affairs, the division that was supposed to investigate police misconduct. Walsh had been in the perfect position to cover up crimes. Crimes to protect corrupt officers, to make evidence disappear. Mrs. Torres, you need to tell this to the FBI, not the local police. I know, that's why I'm calling you first. Can you help me? Can you protect me like you protect those other people? Yes, Maya said immediately. Absolutely yes. Don't go home tonight. Go somewhere public, somewhere with cameras. I'm calling the FBI right now. She hung up and immediately dialed Agent Park. It was nearly midnight, but Park answered on the second ring. This better be an emergency, Dr. Richardson. It is. I know who hired Anthony Crane. I know who's been protecting the operation, and I know who had Michael Torres killed. She told Park everything Ms. Torres had said. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, Lieutenant Raymond Walsh. Jesus. He's been on the force for 28 years. Decorated officer commendations, the whole package. If he's dirty, he's been dirty for decades. Can you arrest him? Not on the word of one terrified witness with no corroborating evidence, Park said. We need more. We need proof. Then let's get proof, Maya said. Tell me what you need. What they needed was a confession. And getting a confession from a man who'd spent 28 years hiding his crimes wasn't going to be easy. But Maya had an idea. What if I confront him, she said, publicly at a police reform hearing, ask him directly about his role in the operation? That's insane, Park said flatly. If he's as dangerous as we think, you'd be painting a target on your chest. The target's already there, Maya countered. But if I accuse him in front of cameras with witnesses, he can't just make me disappear. He'll have to respond, and maybe, just maybe, he'll slip up. Or maybe he'll have you killed on your way out of the building. Then arrest him the moment I make the accusation. Have agents ready to move. Use my testimony as probable cause." Park was quiet for a long time. "This is the craziest thing you've suggested yet, which is saying something considering you wanted to stay on a fishing boat in the Caribbean. Is that a yes?" "It's a maybe. Let me talk to my superiors. But Dr. Richardson, if we do this, you need to be prepared for the possibility that it goes wrong, that Walsh has contingencies, that he's more dangerous than we know." "I'm always prepared for things to go wrong," Maya said. "It's kind of my specialty." The police reform hearing was scheduled for November 18th at the Miami City Hall. Maya was invited to testify about the Foundation's work and recommendations for improved oversight. Walsh would be there representing Internal Affairs, presenting the department's response to the reforms. Perfect timing. India tried one last time to talk her out of it. "Maya, this is different from confronting Crane or testifying at trial. Walsh is still free, still powerful, still protected by the system, if this goes wrong." "It won't," Maya said with more confidence than she felt. "The FBI will be there. Agent Park promised me. And if they're not fast enough..." Maya thought about Mrs. Torres, about her son who'd tried to do the right thing and died for it, about Dr. Chen and Dr. Okonkwo and Marcus Webb, about the 12 people who didn't survive to see justice. "Then I'll have died trying to expose the truth," she said, which is more than most people can say. November 18th arrived cold and gray, unusual for Miami. Maya dressed carefully, a red blazer that would stand out on camera, her university pin that represented her credentials, and underneath her sleeve the scars on her wrists that she could show if needed. Proof of what these people did to whistleblowers. The hearing room was packed. Press activists, police union representatives, city officials. Maya spotted Agent Park in the back trying to blend in. She also spotted several other people who might have been FBI too alert, too watchful. Lieutenant Raymond Walsh sat in the front row with other department representatives. He was in his 50s, gray hair neatly trimmed, wearing his dress uniform with multiple commendations. He looked like everyone's idea of a good cop, steady, experienced, trustworthy. Maya felt hatred settle cold in her chest. She testified first, presenting the Foundation's recommendations. Body cameras that couldn't be turned off. Independent oversight boards with subpoena power. Mandatory psychological evaluations for officers involved in use of force incidents. Protection for whistleblowers within departments. Walsh watched her with an expression of polite interest, taking notes occasionally. He had no idea what was coming. Then it was his turn to present Internal Affairs' position on the reforms. He walked to the podium, confidently adjusted the microphone, and began with practiced smoothness. "The Miami-Dade Police Department takes accountability seriously. The recent convictions of Officers Crane and Torres, along with Captain Blackwell, demonstrate that we do not tolerate corruption in our ranks. However, we must be careful not to let isolated incidents..." 12 people were murdered? Maya interrupted, standing up. "That's not isolated, Lieutenant Walsh." The room went silent. Walsh's smile froze. "Dr. Richardson, you'll have time for questions after my presentation." "I have a question now," Maya said, walking toward the podium. Agent Park moved closer to the front hand near his weapon. "Michael Torres gave testimony to the FBI before his death. He said someone higher up was organizing the criminal operation. Someone who recruited officers, arranged payments, and ordered eliminations of threats. Was that someone you, Lieutenant?" Walsh's face went pale, then red. "That's a slanderous accusation with no basis. Torres's mother says her son gave her your name specifically, said you were the architect of the entire scheme, that you've been protecting corrupt officers and eliminating whistleblowers for years." "This is outrageous." Walsh slammed his hand on the podium. "I've served this city for 28 years. I've dedicated my life to rooting out corruption, not enabling it." "Then why did Anthony Crane receive your encrypted messages telling him to kill me?" That was a bluff. They hadn't traced the messages back to Walsh yet. But Maya was betting Walsh didn't know that. His expression gave him away. Just for a second, genuine fear flashed across his face before the mask of outrage slipped back into place. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I never sent any messages to anyone." "Then you won't mind if the FBI examines your devices," Maya said. "Your computers, your phones, your email accounts. Because if you're innocent, the forensic analysis will prove it." Agent Park and 3 other agents moved forward, closing in on Walsh. Park pulled out his badge. "Lieutenant Raymond Walsh, I'm Special Agent Jennifer Park with the FBI. We have a warrant to search your electronic devices and question you regarding conspiracy, corruption, and solicitation of murder. You need to come with us." Walsh looked around the room frantically, seeing cameras, witnesses, no escape route. His hand moved toward his service weapon. "Don't," Park said sharply. "You pull that gun and this ends badly for you." For a long moment, Walsh's hand hovered. Then he slowly raised both hands in surrender. As the agents cuffed him and read him his rights, Walsh looked directly at Maya. "You have no idea what you've started. This goes higher than me. Higher than you can imagine." "Then I guess I'll keep digging until I find out," Maya said. They arrested him at 2:47 p.m. By 5:00 p.m., the FBI had executed search warrants on Walsh's home office and personal vehicles. By 8:00 p.m., they'd found the encrypted messaging system he'd used to communicate with Anthony Crane and others. By midnight, Walsh had lawyered up and refused to say another word. But the evidence spoke for him. The forensic analysis revealed years of communications orders to Crane, payments to corrupt officers, arrangements with Nexus Corporation executives. Walsh had been the puppet master, the one who stayed hidden while others did his dirty work. He'd also been skimming money off the top. Millions of dollars flowing through offshore accounts, funding a lifestyle far beyond a lieutenant's salary. "We've got him," Agent Park told Maya 3 days later. "He's looking at life without parole on federal RICO charges, conspiracy to commit murder, corruption, everything. And he's starting to talk, trying to negotiate a plea deal." "Let me guess," Maya said. "He wants to give up someone higher up in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Exactly. Says there were politicians involved. Federal officials, people we haven't even looked at yet." Maya felt tired suddenly. "Does it ever end, or do we just keep peeling back layers forever?" "I don't know," Park admitted. "But every layer we peel back is another criminal we stop, another person we save from being the next victim." The arrest of Lieutenant Walsh made international news. The fact that Internal Affairs, the division meant to police the police, had been corrupted from within sent shockwaves through law enforcement nationwide. Maya's foundation received 5,000 new donation requests in 1 week. The staff had to expand again just to handle the volume. But more importantly, people started coming forward. Other police officers with information about corruption, other whistleblowers who'd been too afraid to speak, other victims who'd thought no one would believe them. "The dam is breaking," India said, looking at the flood of incoming cases. "You did it, Maya. You made it safe for people to tell the truth." "We did it," Maya corrected. "All of us. Every person who testified, every agent who investigated, every victim who survived. This isn't about one person, it's about all of us refusing to accept corruption as normal." On December 23rd, exactly 1 year after Maya had left Miami on Rosa's fishing boat to heal, she returned to that same dock. Rosa was there preparing for another winter season. "You coming with us again?" Rosa asked, grinning. "Just for a day," Maya said. "I wanted to do something, a memorial." "Speak." They sailed out to the approximate coordinates where Maya had been thrown overboard. GPS technology made it easy to find the exact spot. Maya stood at the rail with a wreath of flowers and 12 ribbons, each with a name written on it. Dr. James Chen, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, Marcus Webb, 9 others whose names they'd finally learned through Walsh's testimony. "I survived when you didn't," Maya said to the ocean, to the memory of those 12 people. "I don't know why. Maybe there's no reason. Maybe it was just luck and timing. But I promise you this, I won't waste the chance you didn't get. I'll keep fighting. I'll keep speaking. I'll keep making sure no one else ends up in this water because they dared to tell the truth." She dropped the wreath into the ocean and watched it float on the surface, the ribbons spreading like rays of sunlight. Rosa came to stand beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah," Maya said, and she meant it. "For the first time in a year, I actually am." They sailed back to shore as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Maya stood at the bow, feeling the spray on her face, no longer afraid of the water beneath her. The ocean had tried to take her, but she'd proven stronger, and now she was using that strength to pull others from the depths. The morning after the memorial at sea, Maya woke to her phone exploding with notifications. She'd learned to dread these moments. They usually meant another threat, another attack, another attempt to silence the Foundation's work. But when she opened her messages, she found something different. Agent Park had sent a single text at 6:47 a.m. "Walsh is talking. You need to see this. FBI field office, 9 a.m. Come alone." India was immediately suspicious when Maya told her. "Come alone. That's not protocol. That's how people get ambushed." "It's Agent Park," Maya said, pulling on clothes. "She's been protecting me for over a year. I trust her." "You trusted the marshals too, and someone in that system leaked your location to Anthony Crane," India reminded her. "I'm coming with you." They arrived at the FBI field office at 8:53 a.m., both tense despite the familiar surroundings. Park met them in the lobby, her expression unreadable. Mrs. Richardson, I need to speak with your sister alone, Park said. Not happening, India replied flatly. Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of me. Park glanced around the busy lobby, then lowered her voice. Lieutenant Walsh gave us names, big names, and one of them is currently serving as a federal prosecutor in the Eastern District. He has access to witness protection files, FBI case files, everything. If he knows we're investigating him, evidence will disappear and witnesses will die. Maya felt her stomach drop. Who is it? I can't tell you here, but I need you to understand what Walsh told us implicates people at the highest levels of law enforcement. This conspiracy goes back 15 years, maybe longer. Environmental crimes, police corruption, political payoffs, all connected. You exposed one branch of it. Walsh's testimony is revealing the entire tree. They were escorted to a secure conference room in the building's basement, windowless and soundproofed. 3 other agents were already there, along with 2 people Maya didn't recognize, both wearing expensive suits and serious expressions. Dr. Richardson, Mrs. Richardson, one of them said, I'm Assistant Director Marcus Webb with the FBI. He saw Maya's reaction to his name. No relation to the journalist who died, though I've been told the coincidence is eerie. This is Deputy Attorney General Sarah Kim from the Justice Department. Kim nodded curtly. Dr. Richardson, what you're about to hear is classified at the highest level. You'll need to sign a non-disclosure agreement before we proceed. If it's classified, why are you telling me? Maya asked. Because Lieutenant Walsh will only continue cooperating if you're in the room, Webb said. He says he'll only give his testimony to the person he tried to kill. His words, not mine. He thinks it'll somehow balance the scales. Maya wanted to laugh at the absurdity. He thinks confessing to me absolves him. He thinks a lot of things, Kim said dryly. Most of them delusional, but his information is solid. We've already verified the first batch of names he gave us, and they check out. If the rest is equally accurate, we're looking at the largest corruption case in federal law enforcement history. India squeezed Maya's hand. You don't have to do this. You don't owe him anything. But Maya was thinking about Dr. Chen, about the families who deserved answers about the future victims who could be saved if this entire network was dismantled. I'll do it, she said, but I want immunity for anything he says that might implicate other victims. I won't let him use this confession to hurt innocent people. Kim nodded. Already arranged? Anything Walsh says about victims or witnesses gets immunity automatically. We're after the predators, not the prey. They brought Walsh in 20 minutes later. He looked diminished in his orange jumpsuit, his gray hair, unkempt handcuffs rattling as he sat down. When he saw Maya, something flickered across his face, shame maybe, or just exhaustion. Dr. Richardson, he said quietly, thank you for coming. Don't thank me, Maya said coldly. I'm here because 12 people are dead, and I want to know who else is responsible. You're just the messenger. Walsh flinched but nodded. Fair enough. I deserve that and worse. He took a deep breath. The operation started in 2009. A developer named Richard Castellano wanted to build luxury condos along the coast, but environmental regulations were blocking him. He needed someone to make the pollution disappear literally. That's when he contacted Nexus Shipping Corporation. We know about Nexus, Webb interrupted. Their executives are already serving time. You know about their current executives, Walsh corrected. The real power behind Nexus is a shell corporation based in the Cayman Islands owned by 3 people. Richard Castellano, the developer, Senator Thomas Brennan from Florida, and federal prosecutor James Martinez from the Eastern District. The room went silent. Senator Brennan was a 3rd-term senator chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Martinez was one of the most respected prosecutors in the country, famous for taking down organized crime. You're saying a sitting senator and a federal prosecutor were running an environmental crime syndicate, Maya said slowly. Not just running it, Walsh said. They created it. Castellano wanted to build. Brennan wanted campaign donations and kickbacks. Martinez wanted money to fund his political ambitions. He's planning to run for Senate next year. They needed someone to handle the messy work, so they brought in Nexus. And Nexus needed protection from law enforcement, so they brought in me. Why you? Agent Park asked. Because I was internal affairs. I could bury investigations, discredit complainants, protect corrupt officers. I recruited Crane and others. I arranged the payments. And when people like Dr. Chen started getting too close to the truth, Walsh's voice caught. I ordered their elimination. Maya's hands clenched so hard her nails drew blood from her palms. You ordered 12 murders. Yes. Walsh met her eyes. I did. and I'll carry that for whatever life I have left. But I'm telling you now because I want them to face what I'm facing. Brennan and Martinez, they're still out there, still protected, still powerful. They'll keep doing this unless someone stops them." "Why should we believe you?" India demanded. "You've lied for 15 years. Why tell the truth now?" "Because I watched Dr. Richardson survive what I ordered done to her," Walsh said simply. "I watched her refuse to be silent, refuse to hide, refuse to let us win, and I realized I spent 15 years on the wrong side, protecting monsters, becoming one myself. This is the only thing I can do that matters anymore. Tell the truth. Help stop them." Webb leaned forward. "Lieutenant Walsh, do you have evidence to support these allegations against Senator Brennan and Prosecutor Martinez?" "I have 15 years of evidence," Walsh said. "Financial records showing money flowing from Castellano's Shell Corporation to accounts controlled by Brennan and Martinez, recorded phone calls where we discussed eliminations, emails planning the dumping operations. It's all on encrypted servers I maintained as insurance. I'll give you the access codes, the passwords, everything." "In exchange for what?" Kim asked. "Life in prison instead of death penalty," Walsh said. "Protective custody away from general population, and..." He looked at Maya. "I want Dr. Richardson to know I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know 12 people are still dead because of me, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry." Maya stood up abruptly. "Keep your apology. It's worthless. Just give them the evidence and rot in prison like you deserve." She walked out of the room, India following close behind. In the hallway, Maya's legs finally gave out, and she slid down the wall, shaking. "A senator," she said numbly. "A federal prosecutor. How high does this go?" "Maybe we don't want to know," India said quietly. But Maya did want to know. She needed to know how deep the corruption ran, how many people had died protecting these men's secrets, how much more damage they could do if they weren't stopped. Agent Park found them in the hallway 10 minutes later. "Walsh gave us the access codes. We're verifying the evidence now, but preliminary review suggests he's telling the truth. This is real, Dr. Richardson, and it's bigger than we imagined." "What happens now?" Maya asked. "Now we build airtight cases against Brennan and Martinez. That'll take months. These are powerful people with resources and connections. They'll fight back hard. And Dr. Richardson..." Park hesitated. "They'll come after you. When they realize Walsh is cooperating and you're involved, you'll become the biggest threat to their freedom. Bigger than any evidence because you're the face of this fight, the survivor who won't quit." "So I hide again." "So you prepare," Park said. "Because this time, the people trying to kill you won't be street criminals or corrupt cops. They'll be people who can order drone strikes, who can have federal agents arrested on fake charges, who can make entire investigations disappear. You need to be smarter than you've ever been." The plan they developed was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of hiding from the spotlight, Maya would step fully into it. She'd become so visible, so documented, so watched, that killing her would be impossible without obvious culpability. "It's the safeguard strategy," India explained at a Foundation meeting 3 days later. "Maya becomes too important to kill quietly. Every move she makes gets recorded, broadcast, witnessed by thousands. She gives speeches with cameras rolling. She testifies at hearings live-streamed worldwide. She makes herself unkillable by making herself unavoidable." "That sounds exhausting," Rosa said. She'd flown in from Jamaica when she heard about the new threats. "And dangerous. What if they decide they don't care about subtlety anymore?" "Then they reveal themselves," Maya said. "And that's what we want. These men have stayed hidden for 15 years by being careful, by using proxies, by never exposing themselves. The moment they act directly, they lose." The Foundation's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Okonkwo, chosen deliberately to honor Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, one of the murdered researchers, raised her hand. "What about legal liability? If you're actively provoking these people, could you be accused of reckless endangerment?" "I'm not provoking them," Maya corrected. "I'm continuing to do what I've always done, expose corruption and protect whistleblowers. If they choose to attack me for that, the liability is theirs." Over the next month, Maya became omnipresent. She gave a TED Talk about systemic corruption that got 11 million views. She testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Brennan's own committee, about the need for stronger whistleblower protections. She appeared on every major news program, wrote op-eds for the New York Times and Washington Post, and started a podcast called Voices from the Deep, featuring other survivors of institutional violence. Brennan and Martinez couldn't have missed it. She was everywhere saying their names. Demanding investigations, making it impossible for the Justice Department to ignore the allegations. And then came the counterstrike. February 9th, 3:00 p.m. Maya was in her office at the Foundation when India burst through the door, her face ashen. They just arrested Jennifer Wu and Darius Thompson. Maya's blood went cold. Jennifer and Darius, the other two survivors who'd testified at Crane's trial. On what charges? For perjury, false testimony, conspiracy to defame law enforcement officers. India threw a legal brief on Maya's desk. It's completely fabricated, but it's being prosecuted by James Martinez's office. He's claiming that you three coordinated to lie about your attacks, that you made up the story for money and attention. Maya read the brief in disbelief. Martinez had somehow convinced a federal judge to issue warrants based on new evidence suggesting the three survivors had colluded. The evidence was absurd, minor inconsistencies in their testimonies twisted to suggest coordination rather than independent recollection. He's trying to discredit us before Walsh's testimony becomes public, Maya said. If he can prove we lied about our attacks, everything else unravels. The Foundation loses credibility. Walsh looks like a liar trying to save himself. Brennan and Martinez walk free. It's working, India said grimly. Jennifer and Darius are in federal custody right now, bail denied. And Maya, there's a warrant for your arrest too. Then let them arrest me, Maya said, standing up. We arrest me on camera in front of witnesses with lawyers present. We turn it into a spectacle, make Martinez's corruption impossible to hide. India stared at her. You want to get arrested? I want to control how it happens. Because if they take me quietly, I disappear into the system and maybe never come back. But if they take me publicly with the world watching, Maya smiled grimly, then they have to follow the rules. They organized the arrest for the next morning at 9:00 a.m. outside the Foundation's offices. Maya called every news outlet in Miami, every reporter who'd covered her story, every camera that could point in her direction. When the federal marshals arrived at 9:03 a.m. to execute the warrant, they found 200 people surrounding the building, reporters, supporters, protesters with signs reading, "You can't drown the truth," and "We see you, Maya." Maya walked out with India beside her, raised her hands, and said clearly, for all the cameras, "My name is Dr. Maya Richardson. I'm surrendering to federal authorities on charges I know to be false. I have never lied about my attempted murder. I have never conspired with anyone to defame law enforcement. And I will prove that in court just like I proved Derek Crane's guilt." The marshal who handcuffed her looked uncomfortable. "Dr. Richardson, you have the right to remain silent." "I'm not remaining silent," Maya interrupted. "I want everyone to hear this. Federal prosecutor James Martinez is charging me with perjury because I exposed his involvement in environmental crimes and murder for hire. He's using his position to silence whistleblowers and protect his criminal enterprise, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." The footage went viral within minutes. By the time they processed Maya into federal custody at 11:00 a.m., Haber Freedom for Maya was trending #1 globally. Martinez had made a catastrophic miscalculation. He'd thought arresting the survivors would intimidate them into silence. Instead, he'd given them the biggest platform they'd ever had. The arraignment happened at 2:00 p.m. that same day. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity, with overflow crowds in the hallways and outside the building. The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Williams, looked displeased by the circus atmosphere. Martinez himself appeared to prosecute the case, standing tall and confident in his expensive suit. He was handsome in a polished way, with silver hair and a voice like warm honey. Maya could see why voters liked him. "Your Honor." Martinez began smoothly. The defendants in this case perpetrated a fraud on the federal court system and the American people. They fabricated stories of attempted murder to gain fame and fortune. They coordinated their testimonies to seem credible, and they destroyed the reputations of dedicated law enforcement officers in the process. "That's a lie," someone shouted from the gallery. Judge Williams's gavel came down hard. "Order, I will have order, or I will clear this courtroom." Maya's lawyer stood a famous criminal defense attorney named Thomas Reed, who'd volunteered his services pro bono after hearing about the arrest. He was in his 70s, white-haired, and fierce famous for defending whistleblowers and political prisoners. "Your Honor, this prosecution is a transparent attempt to silence my client and discredit her testimony about Mr. Martinez's own criminal activities. The timing alone is suspicious. These charges were filed within days of Lieutenant Raymond Walsh agreeing to cooperate with federal investigators regarding Mr. Martinez's involvement in corruption and murder for hire." Martinez's smooth expression cracked slightly. "Your Honor, that's an outrageous accusation." "It's also the truth," Reed interrupted, "and we'll prove it. But first, we're moving to dismiss these charges on the grounds that Mir Martinez has a clear conflict of interest. He cannot prosecute someone who has accused him of crimes. That's not justice, that's revenge. Judge Williams frowned. Mr. Martinez, is it true that the defendant has made allegations against you personally? Baseless allegations made by a convicted felon, Martinez said, referring to Walsh. I've been a federal prosecutor for 18 years with an impeccable record. I'm not going to let conspiracy theories derail my prosecution of perjurers. The allegations are not baseless, Reed said. Lieutenant Walsh has provided evidence, financial records, communications testimony implicating Mr. Martinez in a 15-year criminal conspiracy. That evidence is currently being reviewed by the Justice Department Inspector General. Mr. Martinez knows this, which is why he's desperate to discredit Walsh's primary corroborating witnesses. The courtroom erupted again. Judge Williams looked between Martinez and Reed, clearly processing this information. Mr. Martinez, are you currently under investigation by the Inspector General? Martinez hesitated just long enough for the answer to be obvious. I have been informed of certain inquiries, yes, but I have not been charged with any crime, and these inquiries are completely unrelated to this case. They're directly related, Reed countered. Dr. Richardson exposed environmental crimes connected to Mr. Martinez's Shell Corporation holdings. Mr. Martinez, through proxies, ordered her death. She survived. Now he's using his prosecutorial power to destroy her credibility before his own crimes come to light. Judge Williams held up her hand for silence. This is highly irregular. Mr. Martinez, I'm inclined to recuse you from this case given the apparent conflict of interest. The charges will stand for now, but a different prosecutor will be assigned. Your Honor, that's not necessary. It's my courtroom. Mr. Martinez and I decide what's necessary. You're recused. Bail for the defendants is set at $50,000 each. Next hearing is scheduled for March 15th. Her gavel came down with finality. Maya felt relief and frustration in equal measure. The charges weren't dismissed, but Martinez's ability to control the prosecution was gone. It was a small victory, but a crucial one. As they led her out of the courtroom, Maya passed within 3 feet of Martinez. He leaned close and whispered so only she could hear, "You should have drowned when you had the chance." Maya stopped, turned to face him directly, and said loud enough for the nearby reporters to hear, "Is that a threat, Prosecutor Martinez? Because it sounds like you're confessing to attempted murder?" His face went white. Cameras clicked and phones recorded. He'd just implicated himself in front of dozens of witnesses. Reed, walking beside Maya, allowed himself a small smile. "Well played, Dr. Richardson." India posted Maya's bail within 2 hours. As they walked out of the federal building, Maya was mobbed by supporters and reporters. "Dr. Richardson, what do you say to people who think you're lying?" "I say watch what happens next," Maya replied. "Watch as the evidence comes out. Watch as Martinez and Brennan's crimes are exposed. Watch as the truth surfaces just like I surfaced from that ocean." "Are you afraid they'll try to kill you again?" "I'm terrified," Maya admitted. "But fear isn't useful. Action is. So I'm going to keep acting, keep speaking, keep fighting until every one of these criminals is behind bars where they belong." The leaked evidence started appearing 3 days later. Anonymous sources, presumably FBI agents sympathetic to the investigation, began releasing documents to major news outlets. Financial records showing money flowing from Castellano's Shell corporations to accounts controlled by Brennan and Martinez. Emails discussing problem elimination and cleanup operations. Phone recordings where Brennan and Martinez casually discussed having people killed. The media explosion was instantaneous. Senator Brennan held a press conference denying everything, claiming the evidence was fabricated by political enemies. Martinez went into hiding, refusing to comment. Castellano fled the country entirely, last seen boarding a private jet to a non-extradition country. The Senate Ethics Committee opened an investigation into Brennan on February 18th. The Justice Department Inspector General recommended criminal charges against Martinez on February 22nd, and on February 25th, a federal grand jury indicted both men on charges of conspiracy, corruption, murder for hire, and environmental crimes. Maya watched the arrest of Senator Thomas Brennan on live television. He was taken from his Senate office in handcuffs, still claiming innocence, still blaming political persecution. But the evidence was overwhelming. Martinez was arrested the same day at his vacation home in the Bahamas. He tried to resist extradition, but the Bahamian government cooperated immediately, eager to avoid being seen as harboring criminals. "It's really happening," India said, watching the news coverage with Maya. "They're actually going to face justice." "Maybe," Maya said cautiously. "Rich, powerful men have gotten away with worse. They'll hire the best lawyers, delay the trials for years, hope people forget." "People won't forget," Rosa said. She'd been staying with Maya since the arrest, unwilling to let her friend face this alone. You won't let them forget. The trial of Senator Thomas Brennan and prosecutor James Martinez began on June 3rd, nearly 18 months after Maya had been thrown into the ocean. The venue had to be moved to a larger federal courthouse to accommodate the crowds. Maya testified on the second day, walking the jury through her entire story, from the congressional testimony to the boat, to the sharks, to the survival, to the foundation, to this moment. She spoke for 6 hours, and not one person in that courtroom looked away. Senator Brennan and Prosecutor Martinez ordered my death, Maya said, looking directly at the two men at the defense table. They didn't pull me onto the boat themselves. They didn't kick me overboard themselves. But they created the system that made my attempted murder possible. They recruited the officers. They arranged the payments. They gave the orders. My blood was meant to be on their hands, and when that failed, they tried to destroy my credibility instead. The defense lawyers tried to break her during cross-examination. They questioned her memory, her motives, her finances. They suggested she'd exaggerated for book deals and speaking fees. Maya remained calm through all of it. I didn't write a book to get rich, she said. I wrote it so my story couldn't be erased, and every penny I earned went to the Rising Tide Foundation to help other survivors. The only people getting rich from this corruption were sitting at that defense table. Walsh testified for 3 days, walking the jury through 15 years of crimes. He showed them the financial records, played the recordings, explained the operations. He never tried to minimize his own guilt, which made his testimony more credible. I did terrible things for these men, Walsh said. I helped murder 12 people. I ordered Dr. Richardson's death. I betrayed everything I swore to uphold. And I did it because they paid me, because they protected me, because they made it easy. They created a system where corruption was rewarded and conscience was punished. I was wrong to participate, but they were wrong to create it. Jennifer Wu and Darius Thompson testified about their own attacks, about how the same system that tried to kill Maya had tried to kill them. Their stories corroborated everything, the same patterns, the same methods, the same fingerprints of conspiracy. The trial lasted 11 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 days. On August 19th, at 3:47 p.m., they returned guilty verdicts on all charges for both defendants. The courtroom erupted. Brennan's face went purple with rage. Martinez simply sat frozen, staring at nothing. The judge, a black man named Theodore Washington, looked at both defendants with open contempt. You gentlemen corrupted the very institutions meant to protect justice. You murdered 12 people to protect your profits. You tried to murder 3 more. You betrayed the public trust in the most profound way possible. The law allows me to sentence you to life imprisonment without parole. I'm going to do exactly that. Senator Thomas Brennan received life plus 40 years. Prosecutor James Martinez received life plus 35 years. Both were stripped of their pensions, their law licenses, their freedom forever. As the marshals led them away, Brennan turned to look at Maya one last time. Whatever he saw in her expression made him flinch and look away. Good, Maya thought. Let him spend the rest of his life remembering the woman he couldn't drown. The celebration that night at the foundation was subdued despite the victory. Maya stood on the balcony of their office, looking out at the Miami skyline, feeling empty rather than triumphant. India found her there an hour into the party. You okay? 12 people are still dead, Maya said quietly. Brennan and Martinez are in prison, but that doesn't bring back Dr. Chen or Dr. Okonkwo or Marcus Webb or the 9 others. Justice happened, but it's incomplete. It's always incomplete. So what do we do? India asked. We keep going, Maya said. We help the next person who tries to speak up. We expose the next corrupt system. We make it harder for the next Brennan or Martinez to get away with their crimes. We don't stop. The Foundation's work expanded dramatically after the convictions. Survivors from across the country reached out people who'd been silenced by police, by corporations, by institutions that valued power over truth. The staff grew from 12 people to 40 then to 80. Maya traveled constantly speaking at universities, training sessions, conferences. She testified before Congress 4 more times in the next year, pushing for legislation to protect whistleblowers and prosecute institutional corruption. The book she wrote, Shark Water's One Woman's Fight Against the System That Tried to Drown Her, became a bestseller. Every penny went to the foundation, funding legal defenses and investigations. But the most important moment came almost 2 years to the day after her ordeal began. December 12th, Maya stood before a crowd of 5,000 people at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Behind her screens showed the faces of Dr. Chen, Dr. Okonkwo, Marcus Webb, and the 9 others who'd been killed. a memorial to the voices that had been silenced. 2 years ago, corrupt police officers threw me into the Atlantic Ocean, Maya said, her voice carrying across the crowd. They thought the water would silence me. They thought the sharks would erase their crime. They thought no one would care about one black woman who asked too many questions. She paused, looking at the thousands of faces watching her at the cameras broadcasting her words to millions more around the world. They were wrong about everything. The ocean didn't silence me, it amplified my voice. The sharks didn't kill me, they became a symbol of survival against predators who wear badges and suits. And people cared. Millions of people cared. You cared. She gestured to the screens behind her. These 12 people didn't survive to see justice, but because of them, hundreds of others have. Because of their sacrifice, whistleblower protections are stronger, environmental regulations are enforced, corrupt officials are behind bars. Their deaths mattered. Their voices echo. Maya's voice strengthened, fierce and unbreakable. To everyone who's been silenced, who's been threatened, who's been told to sit down and shut up, I'm here to tell you something. They can throw you in the deepest water. They can send the sharks. They can use every ounce of power they have to drown your truth. But if you refuse to sink, if you keep swimming, if you keep speaking, you will survive. And your survival will change everything. The crowd erupted in applause that echoed off the memorial walls, a wave of sound that felt like the ocean itself rising up in response. Later that night, back in her hotel room, Maya video called Rosa, who was somewhere in the Caribbean on the Santa Maria. "Saw your speech," Rosa said, grinning. "You made me cry, and I don't cry. Good tears or bad tears. Proud tears. You did it, Hermana. I turned your nightmare into a movement." Maya smiled tiredly. "We did it. All of us. You, India Agent Park, Jennifer Darius, even Torres and Walsh in their own messed up ways. Nobody does this alone." "So what's next for the great Dr. Maya Richardson?" Rosa asked. Maya thought about the Foundation's growing caseload about the legislation she was helping draft about the universities that wanted her to teach about the survivors who needed support. "Next, I teach others how to swim in shark-infested waters," Maya said. "How to survive when the system tries to drown them. How to keep their heads above water until help arrives. How to turn their survival into power." She looked out her hotel window at the Potomac River, at the water that connected this city to the ocean where she'd nearly died. The water didn't scare her anymore. It reminded her that she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. "And Rosa," Maya added, "thank you for finding me, for believing me, for teaching me that the ocean gives back what it takes if you're brave enough to keep swimming." "Always, Hermana," Rosa said softly. "Always." 5 years after the day Derek Crane threw Maya Richardson into the Atlantic Ocean, she stood in the Rose Garden at the White House receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The president in his speech called her a beacon of courage who refused to let corruption drown justice. Maya's scars were still visible on her wrists when she shook his hand. She wore them proudly now, proof of survival, reminders of cost. In the audience sat India Rosa Agent Park, Jennifer Wu Darius Thompson, Mrs. Torres, and representatives from the families of all 12 victims. They stood together as Maya accepted the medal, a united front of survivors and allies. "This medal doesn't belong to me alone," Maya said in her acceptance speech. "It belongs to everyone who speaks truth to power, everyone who risks everything to expose corruption, everyone who refuses to stay silent even when silence is safer. We are the voices they tried to drown, and together we are a tidal wave they cannot stop." The Rising Tide Foundation had helped over 2,000 whistleblowers by then secured convictions against 47 corrupt officials and changed whistleblower protection laws in 38 states. They'd saved lives, people who would have been silenced, who would have disappeared, who would have become the next statistics. That night, Maya returned to Miami and drove to the beach where Crane and Torres had arrested her 5 years earlier. She walked to the water's edge, took off her shoes, and waded into the shallows. The ocean lapped at her ankles, cold and familiar. She wasn't afraid anymore. The water had taken her to the edge of death and somehow brought her back stronger, fiercer, unbreakable. "Thank you," she whispered to the waves, "for not taking me, for giving me back, for making me into someone who could fight for others." The ocean didn't answer, but Maya didn't need it to. She understood now what her mother had meant all those years ago. The ocean remembers who we are, and she'd proven beyond any doubt that she was someone who could not be drowned. She was Dr. Maya Richardson, survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and warrior. The woman who'd been thrown to the sharks and emerged to take down an empire. The voice that had risen from the depths and changed the world. They'd tried to silence her with water and violence and fear. Instead, they'd created a tsunami of justice that swept away their corruption and left truth standing in its wake. She'd transformed her trauma into purpose, her survival into salvation for countless others, her scars into symbols of unbreakable strength. The ocean had not drowned Maya Richardson. Instead, it had forged her into something powerful enough to drown them. And that truth, like all truths, would echo forever in the lives she'd saved, the systems she'd changed, and the voices she'd empowered to rise from their own depths and refuse to sink.